There we go. Turn that down a little bit. Some weird feedback issues. Be okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. How's everybody doing today? It's Thursday, July 23rd, 2026. We're going to begin starting off with a Wall Street Journal article. Satellite images show Iran is rebuilding and fast. This is headline news. Reporting from the Wall Street Journal today. Bach is not greater than Mozart. You better shut your fucking mouth. Okay? Shut your whorish little dirty mouth. All right, Tehran's speedy recovery from damage done by the United States and Israeli air campaign raises concerns about its effectiveness. Here's satellite image showing crews repairing damaged roads in early June as trucks cleared debris and reopened collapsed tunnel entrances at an Iranian missile base north of Kermanshah. Okay. Instant trigger. Iran has quickly rebuilt infrastructure, guys. That was damaged during the U.S. and Israeli bombing campaign over recent months, from missile bases nestled deep inside your mom's booty hole, inside mountains, to bridges, ports, production facilities, according to Israeli and Western officials in a review of satellite imagery. The faster-than-expected progress worries some Israeli officials. It helps explain Iran's continued resilience despite an air campaign that involved more than 20,000 strikes. At the height of the war, why am I being sold a shirt that has a kitten dressed like a samurai shooting a bow and arrow? Or playing a guitar. It's a black cat, and they must have been checking my DMs. Seeing all the cat memes I share. Blurted out laughing about what? Oh, the cat. Yes, you guys were watching it too. Mozart was not a Zionist. Shut your fucking mouth. Gosh, I will not have you speak blasphemously against the immortal tone poet. You guys really are trying to trigger me right now. I said deep in your mom's butthole. I said it. No, I said that's what the Wall Street Journal said. I'm reporting the news. That's literally written right here on the page. Enough of your pointless banter, okay? We're here to learn, okay? Strap yourself in. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this shenanigans. All right, it helps explain Iran's continued resilience despite an air campaign that involved more than 20,000 strikes at the height of the war, and that continues along Iran's coast in an effort to break Tehran's grip on the strait. Sorry, I had a hiccup. Near Kangavar in western Iran, satellite imagery from Planet Labs in March showed 2 tunnel entrances and an access road damaged by airstrikes aimed at blocking access to an Iranian missile base. Within weeks, imagery from Airbus revealed a neatly paved road leading to freshly excavated entrances. In another case, an Israeli military official said Iran repaired a bridge that Israel had struck with 3 bombs within days, surprising Israeli officials and prompting them to question the effectiveness of their targeting. Planet Labs satellite images from the beginning of July also showed partial reconstruction efforts at a shipyard in the port of Bandar Anzali on the Caspian Sea that is linked to the IRGC, the paramilitary group tasked with defending the regime. I love that. They can't just say the Iranian army. They got to say it's the paramilitary group, like it's a terrorist organization or something. And of course, they're defending the regime. Israel said it hit dozens of targets there in March, including warships, a port, a command center, a shipyard used to repair and maintain vessels, aiming at a Russian-Iran supply line, and calling it one of the most significant attacks of the war. But get this, Ron Kochav, a former commander of Israel's air and missile defense forces, said the rapid recovery is consistent with skills Iran demonstrated in rebuilding its infrastructure and missile stockpile after the 12-day Israel-Iran war last June, before the new war began in February. Right, this is our second war in a year against Iran that we've lost. They refilled their stockpiles, he said. They have very impressive industrialization and reconstruction capabilities. You see, this is exactly what the Americans cannot stand other countries to do. Industrialize. Be self-sustained and self-sufficient. Be independent. Be sovereign. Here's some more satellite images near Kandgavar in western Iran. Planet Labs satellite images in March showed airstrikes had damaged tunnel entrances, so that's what they just alluded to. You can see it's paved over in the second photo. Iran faces an enormous, costly, and time-consuming effort to dig out from under the damage caused by the United States and Israeli attacks. But the speedy work across the country cuts into claims by President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Satan Milikowski that their bombing campaign dealt a devastating blow. The leaders have come under domestic pressure for failing to dislodge Iran's ruling regime, eliminate Tehran's nuclear program, or reopen the strait. White House spokeswoman Anna Kelly said the war succeeded in destroying Iran's missile arsenal and production, sinking its navy, weakening its militia allies, and ensuring it won't possess a nuclear weapon. All of those things are like completely, decidedly the opposite. This operation was a resounding victory by any objective measure. Sure thing, White House spokesperson. The U.S. CENTCOM responsible for the Middle East declined to comment. The Office of Israel's Prime Minister didn't respond to a request for comment. Israel's military declined to comment. Overnight in the region, the U.S. military wrapped up its 12th straight day of strikes, hitting the same sorts of targets, missile and drone facilities, operations centers, and military infrastructure that it has been hitting for weeks now. Its aim is to break Iran's hold on the strait after the deal Trump signed in June to reopen it unraveled as Iran stepped up attacks on shipping. Despite the pounding that your mom received, Iran has continued to land precise hits on ships and carry out missile attacks on U.S. regional allies, such as Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan, where an Iranian attack killed 3 U.S. soldiers plus 5 over the weekend. It turns out that the rumors about the end or the significant dwindling of the missiles were wrong, said Tal Einbar, a senior analyst at the U.S.-based Missile Defense Advocacy Alliance. Here's another satellite image from Planet Labs showing Iran's missile base north of Kermanshah. Took heavy blows at the beginning of the war. I don't know. It looks like desert to me. I can see that there was something there that used to be there that is no longer there. Iran's leaders aren't showing signs of relenting despite the continued attacks. The 5-week U.S. and Israeli bombing campaign at the beginning of the war exceeded the pace of recent wars conducted by the U.S. and Israel in the ME. It took aim at everything from underground missile cities to steel and aluminum factories. By its end, both Trump and Netanyahu portrayed the campaign as a major setback for Iran. Iran's military is a complete and total mess, Trump posted on social media last month. Much of it, like the Navy and the Air Force, doesn't even exist anymore. They've been completely defeated. Netanyahu said Iran's military capabilities and nuclear and ballistic programs had been set back by many years. We smashed Iran's missile production machine, he said in April. The Iranians are firing what is left in their arsenal, and the arsenal is emptying out, but they are not producing new missiles. Exactly the conditions of the American supply chain for fighting this war, actually. Israeli military officials have privately voiced frustration with the results of the bombing campaign, pointing to the active rebuilding. One official familiar with the targeting effort thought Israel could have done more damage if it had stayed focused on military sites rather than shifting early in the war to target Iran's internal security services and even individual checkpoints staffed by the Basij militia in hopes of undermining the regime. Iran is rebuilding everything. The official said they are very worried. A second Israeli military official said that Iran was capable of rebuilding almost everything, including missile production, as it still has the know-how. Israel and the U.S. often only succeeded in collapsing entry points to missile bases deep inside mountains rather than destroying them fully. Israeli military officials are admitting this. Weapons stored inside these collapsed sites were left intact, and Iran has since been digging them out, they said. That's kind of a stirring admission. You'll never hear Netanyahu admit that, or Trump. A missile base in the southwestern Iranian city of Dezful was struck by Israel in June 25 and again in early March when airstrikes buried its entrances. Satellite images from Planet Labs show. 3 months later, images from Airbus showed that Iran was already digging out multiple tunnel entrances at the site. Why doesn't Iran just build their sites above the ground? That way it's easier for us to destroy them. Another Iranian missile base. I don't know why they showed a war museum in Tehran. Like, I think look at how they're trying to subtly propagandize their audience with pictures like this. Oh, it's a war museum, and they're showcasing missiles, and children are playing in the missiles. This is just a completely backwards society, complete barbarism. Look at what they're teaching their kids. Of course, they don't say all that, but that's what the picture implies here. That's what we're supposed to take away from the Wall Street Journal. Another Iranian missile base north of the city of Kermanshah took heavy blows at the beginning of the war. By the first week of June, images distributed by Airbus showed crews had repaired road damage. Trucks visible on satellite images were clearing dirt and reopening collapsed tunnel entrances. Satellite images from Planet Labs also show partial reconstruction in recent weeks near Tehran at Raja Shimi Industries, a plant believed to be involved in the production of missile components, according to a King's College London report. The images show several new structures that appear to have been rebuilt. Some facilities that make more advanced components needed for manufacturing missiles, such as carbon fiber, might take Iran months, if not years, to reestablish following Israeli and American strikes, according to one King's College research fellow and former CIA analyst, of course. But Iran may have stockpiled those components at underground production facilities. Gee, you think? That can be used to assemble dozens or hundreds of new missiles and drones in the short term. Israel's intelligence services believe Iran may have transferred thousands of centrifuges into tunnels inside Pickaxe Mountain, a development that would heighten concerns that it could reconstitute its nuclear program. Iran has demonstrated that it will keep pushing to rebuild its infrastructure and weapons capability however long it takes. It's a matter of will, time, and money. So think about that as we look at this. This is a clip of Pete Kegsbreath appearing before it looks like the Joint Chiefs chair. They're testifying before Congress. I'm not sure in what capacity, but here's a senator, and he's grilling Pete Hegseth. It's actually quite comical. Let's take a look. And it's about exactly what we're talking about, because he's made previous claims that Iran's been completely obliterated, yet they're still obviously engaged in this war. So he's caught in a lie, but let's see how he reacts.
Conflict, Mr. Secretary. Day 14, nearly 5 months ago, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. That was on day 14 of the war. Was that an accurate statement?
They didn't have a Navy any longer. It was completely sunk. Their missiles were buried underneath a lot of their underground facilities, and their defense industrial base has been almost completely destroyed.
On day 14 of this conflict, in the second week of the conflict, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Was that an accurate statement? Yes or no?
Iran's ability to challenge the United States of America at the level at which we're capable of.
That's not what I asked you, Mr. Secretary. You said on day 14, Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Yes or no? Was that an accurate statement?
And I love how he just keeps going back to the same quote. These are your words, yes or no?
What the American military has done to the Iranian military is a historic military defeat,
answer the
and they're
question
ineffective
under oath?
in that context.
3 weeks after you'd already said Iran's military was destroyed and combat ineffective, you said, quote, Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory. You said Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. And you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Were those accurate statements?
Were those accurate?
It certainly was, on behalf of the men and women in uniform, a historic military victory over Iran.
Mr. Secretary, you stated
He has to invoke the troops, right? Goes back to patriotism. Of course, what I'm saying is true because look, our historic victory with our men, our brave men and women.
months ago that Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. Has Iran's military been for the last 4 months combat ineffective?
It's been set back not just years, but likely decades.
Mr. Secretary, you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Was that an accurate statement 4 months ago?
So it was combat ineffective for years to come. Now he's saying they've been set back for decades. See how they weasel out of the line of questioning?
The main objective of this was to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon.
Early in the conflict
Iran will
on
never
day
have a
3,
nuclear
Mr.
weapon.
Secretary, early in the
He's going to eat those words too, because like in a week or two, you know, Iran's going to come out, their foreign minister's going to make a proclamation that they have acquired a nuclear weapon.
Conflict day 3, you said one of those core objectives was to, quote, destroy the missile threat. And as you restated on day 5, to, quote, obliterate Iran's missiles and drones. Those were clearly and repeatedly stated core objectives of the campaign, which 4 months ago you declared had been completed victoriously with every single objective achieved. Were those objectives achieved 4 months ago?
No one ever stated that every single missile was gone.
You stated on March 8th, day 9 of the war, on 60 Minutes, you assured the American people of Iranian surrender. Does that remain your
Bro's got the receipts.
prediction?
Ultimately, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon to threaten the United States of America. That has been the objective, and it remains so.
So just to review, you will not answer whether your
It's the same objective that you said that you already accomplished, but you still have that objective.
Statement made on the 14th day of the war that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and made combat ineffective was a truthful statement to the American people as you sit here and ask for tens of billions more for the conflict.
Senator's time has
Had a historic and effective military campaign against the largest state sponsor of terrorism.
Won't answer the question.
That was painful.
Sounds like
huh?
Pistol Pete has drunk the Kool-Aid, Colonel.
It's
He's
awesome.
it just brings to my mind that he's Trump's fall guy. He's got to get out there and have to defend everything that the Trump administration has done and everything that Trump has said openly, which has been a lie.
It really is awesome. And I have to attribute the same kind of comment to General Kane because I can't believe that he's still in his position with a man above him, directly above him, like that, saying the things he's saying. He's crawling in front of Ossoff. And I got to say something too, Judge. I spent a lot of time in Georgia, so I have an affection for Georgia in some ways. I think that's the man that I see on the other side of the political aisle, if you will, who shows presidential prospects and shows the kind of conscience, the kind of reasoning, the kind of
Hey, thank you, Squish. I appreciate the gifted tier 1 sub to Munatsasim19. Well, Larry Wilkerson's already S-ing this guy's D, the guy that was questioning Pete Hegseth as being presidential. I don't know if I go that far.
That I would associate with a viable candidate to take Donald Trump's place. And he is more and more serious every day. And I'm following him for that reason pretty closely now. Now, I'm easy to get fooled too, but I've been looking for anyone that I could throw up in front of my face at my age and say, there is hope. there is a person on the horizon who might even make a fairly decent president of these United States. The more I hear him, the more I see him,
who
the more
cares?
I evaluate him, the more I think he might be the person. I'll say there's a political advertisement for you, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't mean it.
Should Iran negotiate with the United States, or
They won't.
is the United States of no credibility whatsoever?
I think they have merged. There's no such thing as hardliners and middle of the roaders and soft on this or soft on that in Iran anymore. There's 92, 93 million people spread across the expanse of land is variegated and
Squish,
as large.
I'm not sure what's going on with the sound, but sounds like it's a you problem, unfortunately.
Western Europe, with some terrain that's even.
Oh, he's back. Okay, good. All right. Happy to have you back, Squish. I don't know what happened.
Far more formidable than that terrain, and that includes the French Alps. And they are solid and resolute, unlike everything the pundits in this country preached and prophesied with regard to Iran, in uniform and out. They are standing up to the empire, and frankly, they are beating us. And that's Donald Trump's problem. He's beginning to realize there aren't many ways, if any, to extricate himself from this war he started.
I always appreciate their coverage. Larry Wilkerson, Larry Johnson, all these analysts, but they really do. They end up repeating themselves because it's always the same old story. It's like the facts don't change. How many times have we heard statements like that? Let's move to Sonar 21. It says Israel's critical fuel exposure. An article by Larry Johnson. We try to read his Substack every day to stay informed. It says here, I'm going to read it for you, and then we'll move on to Twitter. But it says, what's going on with the Israeli hardliners following a security cabinet meeting chaired by Satan himself? Bezalel Smotrich said the current situation in which the conflict between Iran and the United States remains limited is the right one and the best for us. We are not looking to get involved because they can't, because they're cowards. He elaborated that Israel's ultimate goal is to weaken and ultimately overthrow the Iranian regime, and that economic pressure, citing Iran's high inflation and currency collapse, is currently the most effective path. So, economic terrorism. He argued the limited U.S.-Iran confrontation, including pressure related to the Strait of Hormuz, benefits Israel without requiring direct Israeli military involvement. That's their best of both worlds. Get the United States to fight Israel's war without Israel actually having to send troops or equipment or weapons. But is he telling the truth, continues Larry. There may be another reason that Israel, despite some belligerent threats from Netanyahu, wants to avoid getting more involved in the war with Iran. I believe the answer may lie in an assessment I received the other day from a friend who is an energy expert and is an active consultant working with countries in the Middle East. Here are the key conclusions. The core judgment. Israel's military posture is critically fuel dependent. Air power is central to homeland defense. Strategic reach and any protracted conflict involving Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, or multiple fronts. The domestic middle distillate system is concentrated in 2 refineries. So the middle distillate, as I've come to learn through this global energy crisis concerning oil specifically, I've learned that every container of oil is not like homogeneous. Like there's the middle part of the oil container is what's called the middle distillate, and that part of the oil in the container is used for used for diesel, I think, or used for military aircraft. And I forget what they call that. If that's like Brent crude, or if there's all these different kinds of crude, but maybe you know. But yeah, the good shit, right? So that portion of the oil is, very intricate in how to manufacture, so it can't just sit around because it'll spoil or something. It'll be ineffective, which is what's happening right now with the bottleneck in the strait. But also that more that oil needs to be allocated for fighting war now. Whatever it's already limited in supply. And whatever limited supply is getting out and is being able to be put to use has to go to military aircraft. and military transport ships and etc. So that means less for domestic consumption. So you see where that will go. It's going to become an economic crisis very shortly. It's going to have cascading effects. So the domestic middle distillate system is concentrated in 2 refineries, with the larger Haifa complex still structurally impaired. Loss of both refineries would remove approximately 104 kb/d of diesel. I don't know what that is. When I see kb, I think kilobyte, but it's probably not what that means. And jet/kerosene output. No assured external system can replace the resulting 88 kb sustained work requirement at the necessary scale and speed. So I think he's just going through the math of what I just explained to you. Especially if they lose access to those refineries. If import reception also fails, Israel enters a finite inventory clock that progressively compresses sortie generation, ground logistics, air defense, backup power, and the wider military support system. So there's 4 critical deficiencies for Israel, according to Larry. Number 1, the national refining concentration. Israel has no geographically diversified domestic refining system. 2 facilities carry effectively the entire national burden. That's important. That's why Israel is ultimately fucked, because it is such a tiny country. It's so easy for Iran to take it out if Iran chooses to do so, attacking its infrastructure. Specifically, its energy industry. The current planning baseline is approximately 82 kb of diesel and 22 of jet kerosene. Haifa supplies about 2/3 of combined middle distillates and roughly 70% of the diesel. Loss of Haifa alone creates a 52 kb sustained case deficit. Okay, so you take out Haifa, it's a disaster for them. Loss of both eliminates domestic supply. Number 2, the existing structural impairment. Haifa is operating, but it is not a fully resilient asset. Its dependence on interconnected power, steam, electrical, pipeline, and transfer systems leaves the complex exposed to common mode failure. The strategic danger is not merely reduced nameplate capacity. It is that further functional disruption could propagate across multiple processing and support systems at once. So, I mean, that's a lot of jargon, but it illustrates, in my mind, a bit of a choke point in these refinery, complex refinery systems. So it says it's, further functional disruption could propagate across multiple processing and support systems at once. Because they're all sort of interconnected, I guess. Okay, so no assured replacement system. Number 3, with both refineries unavailable, approximately 88 kb of middle distillates must come from accessible stocks and imports under the sustained war case. Black Sea supply is sharply constrained. Global jet and diesel trade is compressed. Gulf refining availability is impaired, and every imported barrel remains dependent on insurance, shipping, reception, certification, and internal distribution. This is a lot to unpack here. Israel has procurement options, but no assured backup architecture capable of replacing its refining system at scale. Number 4, military posture is coupled to middle distillates. Israel's Air Force is central to deterrence, homeland defense, long-range reach, and any protracted multi-front conflict. Jet fuel sustains aircraft. Diesel sustains the system that makes air power possible. Air defense, ground mobility, logistics, communications, backup generation, maintenance, and base continuity. A fuel crisis, therefore, degrades the entire military posture, not aviation in isolation. Larry continues here, let me boil this down for you. Oh, thank God, please. During the first 5 weeks of Epic Farty, Israel's refineries in Haifa and Ashdod were hit and suffered significant damage. Those two refineries are essential for Israel's ability to produce diesel and jet fuel. At present, Israel is scraping by, but it does not have substantial reserves. Further damage to those refineries would recreate a fuel crisis for Israel, especially in terms of its ability to produce jet fuel. Without jet fuel, Israel's ability to continue bombing Lebanon and Gaza would be severely constrained, if not eliminated. A lack of diesel would also cripple Israel's ground operations. In short, renewed Iranian attacks on Israel's refineries could leave Israel unable to continue military operations. So that colors Bezalel Smotrich's quote at the top here, which he said, the current situation in which the conflict between Iran and the U.S. remains limited is the right one and the best one for us. We're not looking to get involved. And now you can see what is his calculus for that, because after all, he is the finance minister. I wanted to show you this article from Haaretz, but I can't get access to it because it's paywalled. But it says a cheap solution or science fiction, and I immediately thought of the Goy beam when I saw this, and Jewish space lasers. But it says Israel's laser race against Iran's drones and missiles. Remember that crazy magician dude that was like, China used the Goy beam on Trump, and that's why he signed the MOU? But we know that the Goy beam was invented by Israel. Exactly what they do. Psychological warfare. But I want to learn more about that. I can't get it. I can't get access to that article, and it makes me sad. All right, let's go to Twitter now and check out some of the viral posts happening right now. Don't forget to tap that notice button, hit subscribe. I appreciate all of your support. Leave a kind comment. Let YouTube know that this is a positive place, brimming with optimism and happiness and laughter and love. So Suleiman, our friend Suleiman, is reporting that Iran showcases mini submarines specially designed for the Strait. Let's take a look at these bad boys. Pretty nice. Pretty wide. Not as wide as my chode, but Iran is prepared. I don't know what this is. This is some AI slop. Let's look. Donald Trump is a Trojan horse. There's Israel coming in after they've infiltrated the MAGA base. There you go. Perfect metaphor. That's responding to what? To this. Elon Musk says Grok will make a full-length, historically accurate version of the Odyssey before the end of the year. That's hilarious. Elon Musk is so butthurt that the Odyssey features a black woman as Helen of Troy. It's like another Holocaust. This is the continuation of the white genocide, you see? That's right, we do. We're fully integrated, Valentine. We got live membership, access to the backup page, and see if I can show you guys something about that. So, I want to show you why I do what I do. So, if you take a look at this, I'm going to share with you my my YouTube studio page. And as you can see, I'm constantly getting flagged for every live that I produce, every live that goes up. You can see all these from my new page. All of them are ineligible to earn, no ad earnings, whatever. Constantly just being demonetized and all this, and probably shadow banned at large. But thank you, Valentine. I appreciate the membership. So I've noticed over time that if I leave a live stream open to the public, months could go by, but if that live stream's still up, YouTube will suddenly strike me for something that I said in that live stream from months ago. So, what I think I'm gonna start doing, I normally leave the live open to the public, but because of this, I've decided to close it off to members only for the time being, just to prepare myself. So just to say that, yeah, that's timely because now I've finally got memberships added to the stream. So we got our first member. Thank you to Valentine for gifting a membership to the community. Okay, so let's go back to the slop. This is a slop cast after all. All right, I'm just going to go through this. Some of these things, I repost a lot of things. I don't take a look at them. If they appeal to me, I think, okay, I'll watch that on stream. So this is, let's see, famous Iranian Hormuz reporter joins the ranks as a sniper to defend Iran. That's pretty based. IRIB veteran Hussein Azdahayi says he'll fight for Iran with both his microphone and a Dragunov, I guess is a sniper rifle.
بله سلام به شما و سلام به همه بینندگان.
Greetings to the viewers, he says.
دست من مانند همیشه میکروفون است.
In one of my hands is a mic for the soft war, and the other hand holds a weapon for the hard war.
سلاح دراگانوف. اینجا تنبه بزرگ است. جایی که وقتی می ایستی مسیر اقتدار و نظم ایرانی را بهتر و بیشتر در میابی. زیرا سه جزیره تنبه بزرگ و کوچک و بوموسا.
It's so based. Like, what a fucking G, right? Yeah. He's got his axe. Like his guitar. He's like, I'm ready to rock. I got my microphone. I'm the lead singer of this band.
به مسابقه سه ناو هواپیمابر
I mean, just think about, like, an American anchor on the scene. Got my rifle, got my microphone, I'm ready to go.
ایرانی عمل می‌کنند و به گونه‌ای قرار گرفتند.
He's even got Donald Trump's hair. It's like if Donald Trump actually had authentic organic hair, it might look like that.
در یک قوس که همه کشتی‌های جهان و همه ترددها را می‌توان زیر نظر داشت. مانند من بسیاری این اسلحه و دیگر سلاح‌ها و تجهیزات لازم را بر دوش گرفتند و پاسدار مرزهای آبی میهن شده‌اند.
But he's not only a news reporter for the soft war, he's a guardian for the national borders.
امروز بسیاری از هرمزگانی‌ها و دیگر هموطنان هم به پایگاه‌های بسیج سراسر استان مراجعه کردند و برای خدمت در جزایر نازعات اعلام آمادگی کردند.
I actually should catch myself there because I might get dinged for, firearms policy. Even though I didn't do anything wrong, YouTube. We're always in accordance with the YouTube community guidelines, right, class? Right. Let's give a round of applause to YouTube and its community guidelines. Yes, we love you, YouTube. Okay, Tucker Carlson calls the merger of U.S. and Israeli intelligence the definition of treason. As you know, the Senate, I don't know when the Senate's voting on that, but I know the House of Representatives voted on the NDAA merger of the IDF with the Pentagon, sharing all this military intelligence equipment and technology and information, baking it into the U.S. chain of command, essentially. So apparently that's passed. I don't know if it's passed the Senate, but I presume that it will. Anyway, Tucker's got some thoughts about it.
The Republican Party has decided that the interest of Israel is more important than the interest of the United States. There are a couple of exceptions, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, and they were driven out of the Republican Party.
That's right, the House of Misrepresentatives. Thank you. Yes, you are right.
So it tells you what the priority is. The priority is serving Israel. And even if I liked Israel, which I do not, because it's committing genocide, I think we deserve sovereignty. So it's really that simple. Well, I think America lost its sovereignty many years ago. I mean, the CIA and Mossad have worked together, in some cases, really as one for over 60 years. I mean, and of course, Mossad has fed repeatedly disinformation lies to American policymakers over decades, including the lie that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. That fundamentally came from Israel. There's no dispute about that. The lie that killing the Ayatollah, the Shiite Pope, would lead to the collapse of the Iranian government. No.
Isn't that funny? The last time they did this, we've heard this before. It's like they promoted the lie that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, just like they're promoting the lie that Iran has a nuclear weapon.
No American intelligence agency said that. Mossad said that.
Or will have a nuclear
and
weapon.
Netanyahu told Trump that. So there's a long track record of the United States, its people, its 350 million people, being misused by Israeli intelligence. And so the idea that you would merge them formally is a generational disaster. It's also humiliating, of course. It says to the people of the United States, you have no control over your own country. You were told this is yours. You run it. You own it. You're a shareholder in this enterprise.
Isn't it a form of treason?
So,
treason?
Well, it's the definition of treason. It's the definition. This is treason. This is acting against your own nation on behalf of a foreign nation. But a lot of Americans are waking up to the fact it's not a minor problem. It's not an ancillary problem. It's not just something we should fix in the future. It is the problem that led us into a war that's ending American empire and going to cause massive economic disruption here.
Not the end of the American empire.
In Europe. So the idea that the Republican Party would support a merger of U.S. and Israeli intelligence, IDF and Pentagon, is so deranged that, you have to root for treason trials, for Nuremberg trials at some point. And the president could veto it. He won't, because he's a slave to Israel. We're against genocide. We're against book burning. That's what we learned from the Nazi period. And all of a sudden you wake up and we're like, no, genocide's totally fine.
I mean, it just depends on the book. Like if it's a book written by Ayn Rand, I'll probably support that.
As long as Israel's doing it. In fact, it's not genocide. In fact, if you call it genocide, you're the bad person. What? No. The person committing genocide is the bad person.
True. That's very true. Genocide bad, actually. Hot take. Here is one of those soldiers that was sacrificed for Israel earlier this week. And it says here, Pete Hegseth said she was sacrificed by Trump. He forgot to mention it was for Israel. Let's see this. I guess that's her.
Private Isabella Gonzalez, Ansbach, Germany.
She's like, she learned how to be a drone. An obedient drone. And then she gives the dap. Love the music. Is that a Canadian state trooper? Everybody's like, no personality. Do not show emotion. At least that guy was like, looked her in the eye. Like, hey, congratulations. And then she's like, all right, off to get in the goy box.
Private Telly Moreland, Fort Bliss, Texas.
Isabella, blink twice if you need help. Ethan Klein is going mask off. He gives an unhinged Hitler-esque speech here. He spouts repackaged Nazi propaganda in support of Israel, defends AIPAC, spreads Qatar control conspiracy theory, and rants about Islamo-communism, of course. Islamo-communism. Tearing down Western civilization, of course. Just as the Nazis did about the Judeo-Bolshevism. Judeo-Bolshevism.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, AIPAC's not even close to the biggest spender in terms of political donations.
Why is he breathing like that? Snorting and sniffing. And why do I have to look at his nose? from that angle.
Nations like Qatar spends more money than AIPAC.
You don't hear about that ever at all.
And what they're doing is influencing universities to basically, it's this Islamo communist alliance, which is, it's like a perfect marriage between,
He's like, I know they told me to say, what is it? Islamo communism. It's like, wait, let me check my notes here. It's a marriage of barbarism and extremism.
The anti-West ideologies, so that they just long enough so that they can tear it down. And then
anti-West, so like people that are trying to appropriate their land and resources and their industries and their economies for themselves in a bid for self-determination in accordance with international law, that is anti-West. Well, then that means we should ask the question, what is pro-West? Pro-West is pro-imperialism. Pro-West is pro-invasion, sabotage, economic terrorism. That's what he means by pro-West? That's nothing to be proud about.
Turn on each other the minute that
Right.
that they achieve their goals. But right now, their common goals is...
Their common goals is... Thanks.
Tearing down the West.
He's like, yeah, I'm just like painting here. I'm just like, maybe I should throw that word on the wall and see if it sticks. How am I going to say this?
Western civilization, and they both believe that is the highest, most important order, right?
He sounds so entitled, doesn't he?
Beyond anything. I mean, the left should have no rightful association with the Islamic fucking guard of Iran that like outlaws homosexuality, forces gay people to transition, beats women to death for not wearing scarves, disallows music and celebrating in public. Like, what the fuck is leftist about that? Like, that's the most austere, right, conservative.
Yeah, what is leftist about all the lies that you just spout about the Iranian country?
Theocratic, autocratic institution there should be no alliance, but their highest, most important ideal is the fall of the West.
Right.
Fall of the West. I think they just want us to get out of their backyard, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean,
stop lobbing bombs because they don't want to give up their oil at gunpoint. Here, a U.S. soldier says, fuck Donald Trump. Americans are waking up.
So today is my last day wearing this uniform, and I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, fuck Donald Trump. So today...
Nice. That was a bad goy, in fact. Let's see. Israel First pundit Ben Shapiro-Stein says he's willing to see American lives sacrificed in Iran, claiming to speak for Americans generally. Quote, no one in America wants American casualties. We do understand that war does come along with casualties, and we're willing to undergo that.
And upset. It feels like things are stalemated, that they're getting broader and more difficult. Why? Well, because what the American people want is victory. There's this bizarre notion in foreign policy that the American people are deeply worried about the immediate cost of war to the enemy. That the American people, that we can't handle the ugliness of war for even a day. That every conflict has to be totally antiseptic.
Did he just say antiseptic?
People, that we can't handle the ugliness of war for even a day. That every conflict has to be totally antiseptic.
He's becoming the meme? He's merging with Jake GTV's Shapiro-Stein. He said antiseptic.
And here I'm not even talking about the American willingness to undergo casualties. No one in America wants American casualties. It's tragedy and horror. We do understand that war does come along with casualties. And we are willing to undergo those casualties in pursuit of an end and a victory for America. But as far as the idea that, for example, America, we can't hit Kharg Island because the Iranian people would then be deprived of oil resources. The American people are, I should say, not particularly concerned about that. We are far more concerned with why we're there not winning. I think that what we actually ought to do is say an eye for everything. Like you touch a ship in the Strait of Hormuz and we kill the head of the IRGC, we kill Khalibaf, we kill your entire leadership class. Again,
yeah, because we got to assassinate everyone. It's
South
always
Pars,
worked.
And we destroy Kharg. One drone, and that's what happens. That is the way you win in the middle. By the way, that's the way you win generally.
There's never been a war in history where they've, the winning side has simply assassinated the leadership of the opposing side and then won the war. That's literally what he just said, though.
I think that what we actually ought to do is say an eye for everything. Like you touch a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, and we kill the head of the IRGC.
That's exactly what Marco Rubio said. They're repeating this because I think can't remember if it's the foreign minister Araghchi who said something to the effect of an eye for an eye. Like if the Americans do this, we're going to do that. And then Marco Rubio says, yeah, I heard that they said an eye for an eye. We're going to, Donald Trump's going to do a head for an eye. It's sort of what Ben Shapiro's saying here.
We kill Khalibaf. We kill your entire leadership class. Again. We destroy South Pars and we destroy Kharg.
Again, because it worked the last time. That's why they have to do it again. And isn't that the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results?
One drone, and that's what happens. That is the way you win in the middle. By the way, that's the way you win generally.
No, actually, Ben, that's not how you win wars. To win wars, you must, have a strategy in mind first and foremost. It can't just be your entire strategy can't just be, we're going to assassinate the negotiating team. I know that's what Israel loves to do, but all you have to do is look at Israel's historical record and see that that's never been a successful endeavor. That's why they're still fighting the same people. Here's a clip of Fox News casually discussing committing war crimes on national television. Nick Cruz says United States is a completely deranged country. Says Fox News weighs the possibility of striking Iran's energy infrastructure.
All right, so let's take a look at the power plants and places that we might be able to hit. Lucas, as you see these as targets, what do you think we might hit first?
Well, I don't know if we'll hit it first, but the Damavad plant supplies 40% of Tehran's electricity. The Bashir nuclear power
this is
plant,
crazy,
probably
dude.
Not likely a target. This is the Russians.
Imagine if the Iranians were doing live broadcasts on their national televised media publications on their channels, and we're going to go after this power plant in the United States, in Kansas or wherever. Then we're going to hit up New York City, and that'd be crazy, right? That'd be like, oh, they are actually terrorists. This is the Hamas command center, actually, that they've been talking about right here.
Built this, they still supply Iran with low-enriched uranium.
Because, Lucas, we should say there's a risk to blowing up a nuclear plant.
There's no question. Now, the South Pars gas field, this sits on the largest natural gas field in the world. Israeli forces hit this on March 18th, in the beginning of the war. Iran responded by hitting the Qatari side of this natural gas field. In terms of targets...
But let me ask you, here, this is the Strait.
Yeah, this is the Strait of Hormuz right here.
I mean, sadly, Ben Shapiro's correct. Americans don't care. This is not what's going to make them feel any opposition to the war itself. It's going to obviously be a strain on the domestic economy.
We want to send a message in the Strait where they're hitting ships in the Strait. Wouldn't that be a place we go?
It would. The only question is what would be Iran's response. We've seen Iran hit back in Qatar's oil field, natural gas oil fields in the UAE. That's the big thing.
You mean they'll have a like response? If we hit a power plant, they'll hit...
That's been this tit for tat the whole time. That's what's notable about the Israelis. They use disproportionate responses. Probably one of the reasons that Israel hasn't re-entered the war. Iran has not attacked Israel since early June.
And your assessment of how we're doing it now, do you think we're doing disproportionate? disproportionate, or do you think we could be doing that?
Not doing disproportionate. It is notable that U.S. forces hit an Iranian barracks after an American barracks was hit, of course, in Jordan. That's what killed those 3 U.S. Army
So
soldiers.
this is the power plants that we could be hitting.
This is the big one. Let's go over here on the other side.
He was trying to say that Israel's backed off because they really taught Iran a lesson, is what this guy was trying to say. But it's really they've backed off because they can't. They materially cannot carry on. They're already scrounging for soldiers and weapons. They've got, Lebanon to their north.
Map is Pickaxe Mountain. The U.S. intelligence has assessed that Iran could have moved some of its enriched uranium from Fordo days before Operation Midnight Hammer a year ago to Pickaxe Mountain. It's much deeper than the other nuclear sites. And also, these Zagros Mountains, we're talking about hard dolomite, very hard rock, be very difficult to hit from the air. It's one of the reasons ground forces might be used. In fact, this is a mission for the U.S. military's National Mission Force. We're talking about Delta, SEAL Team 6, the Air Force 24th Special Tactics Squadron.
And the risk is there's never been anyone who said this is what it's like. There's no schematics for what's inside Pickaxe.
Right.
That's what we say.
IAEA has never accessed the site. They haven't. So we don't know for sure if these highly enriched centrifuges, the uranium has been moved to Pickaxe. But it's on the radar. We heard from President Trump saying that he will be striking Pickaxe very soon. We've seen bones flying from Britain. Those are the B-1 bombers. And, of course, the B-2 bombers fly from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri on that round-the-world flight that we saw.
So they have no idea, but they're just still going to bomb the mountain, of course. Here's that quote from Marco Rubio I was talking about.
I think I saw, guys, I saw Arachi, their foreign minister, who the other day say or something about their policies, an eye for an eye. The president's policy is a head for an eye. I mean, honestly, that's what it's going to be. I mean, they will pay a very heavy price for the things they're doing. They're already paying a very heavy price. You guys don't know it because you don't cover it. You're not in Iran. You're not in the street. They don't have a free media. But they're going to continue to pay a very heavy price. Their industrial base has been decimated. Their defense industrial base has been decimated. They're losing launchers. They're losing radars every single night. I think I saw...
where the Middle East can be a peaceful and stable region. And yes, this deal with Saudi Arabia, the energy deal, is contingent on this condition as far as the president is concerned. So we'll continue to talk with our Saudi counterparts to get the deal finalized and hopefully see them joining the Abraham Accords very soon. Where the Middle East can be a peaceful and stable region. And yes, this deal with Saudi Arabia, the energy deal, is contingent on this condition.
So DD Geopolitics says Sugar Baby Levitt, whatever her name is, confirms that Saudi ain't getting shit until they lick the Israeli boot. And that's in response to Donald Trump tweeting that the civil nuclear deal, there will be no enrichment of material, ! Being made between the U.S. Department of Energy and Saudi Arabia, which pertains only to non-military use, such as the ones that Iran and UAE already have, will be approved, but is totally subject to Saudi Arabia joining the very respected and successful Abraham Accords. So you gotta go kiss the wall. You gotta normalize your relationship with Israel. Otherwise, this deal's not going through. The United States is not opposed to civil nuclear facilities. Thank you for your attention to this matter. DD Geopolitics says, haha, Saudis thought they were getting nukes not until you kiss Israel's ass. Here's how it feels filling up your tank while America fights another war for Israel.
What the fuck?
Fuck you,
son of a
stupid
bitch! What the fuck?
Mel Gibson's upset.
Can I ask you one other question? Sure. Just playing devil's advocate, why does Saudi Arabia get a civilian nuclear deal, but Iran doesn't get a civilian nuclear deal?
Well, again, this agreement is still being worked out. Well, it will eventually, hopefully, be finalized with the condition that the president spoke about this morning. But this agreement in particular, as it's been discussed thus far, does give priority access for American companies in the Saudi nuclear energy program, which will ultimately benefit American industry workers and supply chains. So the deal that has been discussed thus far and will continue to be discussed absolutely puts America first, and that's obviously very important to this president. Ed.
Can I ask you one other question? Just playing devil's advocate, why does Saudi Arabia get a civilian nuclear deal, but Iran doesn't get a civilian nuclear deal?
Well, again, this agreement is still being worked out. Well, it will.
Netanyahu reveals how he convinced Trump to bomb Iran. It wasn't, do you allow us or not? It was, here's what we're going to do. I'm informing you. Says he brought 7 slides into the Oval Office and pitched the U.S. on using B-2 bombers to strike Iran's Fordo nuclear facility. Yuck. I'll just read it for you. I went to see Trump right after he was elected, and I came there with 7 heads of cheese. No, slides. Each of them big because they don't allow a USB drive. Okay, they don't allow any electronic devices. Yeah, I wonder why. They're dealing with the Israelis. So I brought slides. 1 slide, 2nd slide, 3rd slide, 4th slide. Yeah, we can count to 7 there, Satan. Here's what we're going to do. Not, are you allowing us? It was more like, here's what we're going to do. I'll inform you. And we get to the last slide, and I say, here's what I'm proposing. You have the B-2s. There's a site called Fordo. If we need to, we'll act against it ourselves, but it would be far more effective if you come in and simply dropped your heavy bombs there. He listened. He didn't give an answer. He said, okay, I'll consider it. He considered, and in the end, he joined. And I was very happy. But what I want to tell you is that I told him what we're going to do. I guess that was a recent interview he gave. He's not really looking too good. Got a lot of makeup on. Here is today in Albania, an Israeli embassy delegation got swarmed by furious crowds the second that they left government offices. The people are done. That's a lot of eggs. I mean, they like to swing chickens. What about getting hurled at with chicken eggs? Try that on for size, Mr. Shlomo Steens. Is it? It probably is an armored car. I didn't even notice that. But that would make sense-a-wits when you're publicly reviled in every country that you go to. Got all those anti-Semites. You hate to see it. Speaking of chickens, can anyone explain what's going on here? What happened to that chicken? Where's that chicken going now? Jews, man. That's all I gotta say. Okay, that's all my reposts. I didn't really have much to show you there. Let's see. U.S. reporters try to shout questions on Iran, Ukraine, and renewed talks ahead of the Lavrov-Rubio meeting. Lavrov asks, speak louder. Rubio ignores them.
Today about Russia helping to target U.S. troops. Is Russia helping Iran target Americans?
Ms. Lavrov, remember Russia stopped this morning in Ukraine.
Once again. Okay, thank you, press. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I can't believe that they're even meeting at this point. Iran's not playing any games, guys.
China. This is very simple. You know, Russia possesses we are the two largest nuclear armed countries on the planet. For us not to talk would be reckless and irresponsible. We have to have a relationship with the Russian government, even though we have areas of disagreement.
There you
This
go.
is very simple.
There's your answer.
Russia possesses we are the two.
Mike Huckabee says without the Jews, there'd be no Christianity.
It is the Jewish foundation upon which Christianity is built. People can argue all they want to. Jesus was Jewish. The early church, they were all Jews. Everything about the New Testament is built upon the Old Testament. If a person says, I don't really care for the Old Testament.
Well, I mean, I then okay, fine, Mike. I'm okay with the genocide then.
Then it's like throwing out most of the New Testament, because the Old Testament is that upon which the New Testament is built. So as Christian believers, we owe the foundation of our faith to...
It looks like he got in a fight with a chicken. You see that on his hand there? He's got a Band-Aid.
Of our faith to the Jewish faith. Without the Jews, there would be no Christianity. It is the Jewish...
I don't know. Do you believe that? You think that's true? B-1B bombers from Ukraine heading to Iran, or sorry, from the UK. Heading to Iran right now. They say it's a blood libel to suggest that Jews systematically poison civilian water wells, but it isn't a blood libel if it's true and happening in real time. Google Operation Cast Thy Bread.
This CCTV video shows a group of
Thank
Israeli
you,
settlers
Lolo. I
breaking
appreciate that gifted sub.
into a vital water pumping station in Ain Samia
Where you at there, E-Dog?
in the occupied West Bank. They smashed monitors,
Hello, Gato.
cut wires, and damaged pipes. And at other sites in the area, videos show a settler attacking a water pipe, another spraying a substance that appears to be pepper spray at Palestinian workers, and even settlers' children trying to damage a pipe. Attacks by extremist settlers on Palestinian water sites in the West Bank have soared in recent years. According to the UN, 57 water and sanitation structures were destroyed, vandalized, or taken over by settlers in 2021. That surged to 387 in 2025. The pumping station in Ain Samia supplies water to around 100,000 Palestinians across more than 20 communities. Just this year, it's been attacked at least 10 times. Across the West Bank, there have also been incidents of settlers slashing Palestinian water tanks. All of this means Palestinians' taps can run dry for hours or even days at a time. Farm animals struggle.
Mm-hmm. Douglas McGregor's reporting that large-scale strikes in Iran have officially begun as of an hour ago. All right, let's move to the Discord and see what you guys have been posting here. Here's a Glenn Greenwald clip.
As many of you know, one of the most important things in my journalism career, one of the things on which I have most focused, has been a defense of brave whistleblowers, people who come forward at great danger or risk to themselves in order to expose wrongdoing among a very powerful institution or an industry or inside government. I've worked, of course, with whistleblowers myself, including people who have discovered all sorts of serious corruption at the highest levels of government, in business, and in elsewhere. But there has recently been a whistleblower who, at almost unfathomable risk to himself, has come forward to blow the whistle on one of our most powerful industries, which is the entertainment industry in Hollywood. And what he had to say was actually quite, in a way, shocking, but I think it's something that if you paid attention, you've known about for quite a long time now, which is the pervasive anti-Semitism that has pervaded all of Hollywood essentially since its inception, from the time when Jewish people were excluded at pretty much every level of Hollywood, something that has endured from decades. No studio heads, no agents, no directors, no writers, no actors. Really just
famously,
basically an industry that has existed from the start in a way that has excluded Jews. And over the past several decades, it's gotten a lot worse. We now have lots of Arab and Muslim studio heads and studio moguls and super agents who just will not produce any films
Hollywood
that have anything to do with advancing the cause of equal rights for Jewish people or for Israel. It has become a really notorious problem, but it's one that understandably people are quite afraid to speak about, especially people who work in Hollywood, whose livelihood depends on working within that industry.
Wow, he's really setting this
And
up.
especially the few people who have kind of slipped through the cracks, who have been Jewish, who have made it somehow into the fringes of Hollywood finally, after almost a century of this brutal marginalization within Hollywood, are now finally starting to speak out. And predictably, they're not getting a lot of attention. It's something that most people would rather avoid. Hollywood is still a very powerful industry. Nobody wants to expose one of its deepest and darkest secrets. And yet an actor, a very brave actor, somebody who has had some success in Hollywood, but not so much that they're invulnerable to cancellation, has come forward. And like I said, they've pretty much been ignored. And we feel duty bound to
Cue Michael
Here
Rappaport.
is this very brave whistleblower in
this
the
guy.
tradition of Daniel
Mark
Ellsberg
Feuerstein,
and Edward
right.
Snowden, Chelsea Manning, and so many others, who has thrown caution to the wind and said, I'm going to blow the whistle on things that I think are
Just
really
like Edward Snowden.
wrong, no matter how angry it's going to make people at the highest levels of my industry. His name is Mark Feuerstein. He's an actor who has had some success appearing on some network sitcoms in the 1990s and into the 2000s, has had a fairly consistent history of being a paid actor, a working actor, which is very surprising because, as he points out,
He is
in this
Jewish.
event at the 92nd Street Y, which is on the Upper West Side, a place where also there are almost no Jews. So it's a very courageous locale to pick as well, to kind of come forward and blow the whistle. He basically has come forward and said Hollywood is rife with anti-Semitism. There you see the tweet. Actor Mark Feuerstein laments, quote, anti-Semitism and issues with Jewish representation in Hollywood. Quote, certain Jewish actors have had their publicists tell reporters, quote, don't ask about their trip to Israel or their time in Jewish summer camp. And we're going to show you the video. It's jarring.
It's jarring.
It's taken me a few days to kind of process, to
Yeah.
reflect on, to think about, because some of what he has encountered and endured and confronted, or
This is
people that are
genius
close to
by
him who
Quinn.
have had to confront it, other Jewish people who are trying to make a living in Hollywood despite these decades-long barriers to the entrance of Jewish people and inside Hollywood because of the lack of Jewish leadership, Jewish representation, Jewish ownership in Hollywood, is actually quite horrific. This is just the first example of which. And I just want to say, this is not the first time that we've covered this. We have covered it before. We haven't probably covered it as much as we should, because the last time we covered it, we got a lot of pushback, a lot of repercussions, a lot of threats, I will say, from some very powerful people in Hollywood who don't like their anti-Semitism being exposed, who don't want it talked about, how difficult it is for Jews to succeed in Hollywood, and always has been. Thanks to whistleblowers like this, though, we feel emboldened. The last time we talked about it was as a result of what the ADL did back in 2025, which is last year. I'm sorry, this is in 2024. Jonathan Greenblatt, the executive director of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which very bravely combats the scourge of anti-Semitism, which, as they never tire of pointing out, is growing rapidly. He went on various online platforms where the ADL has an account, and he said this, quote, it's critical for any push for diversity in any industry to be inclusive of Jews. If your project of inclusion perpetuates the exclusion of Jews, you are failing. So we applaud the many celebrities for their courage in standing up, speaking out, and writing to the Academy to demand change. And there you see.
No, he's not for real. He's being facetious. It's sarcasm. It's satire.
A Hollywood Reporter article with many people who have, despite being Jewish, somehow succeeded in Hollywood. David Schwimmer and Michael Rappaport and Julian Margolis. And he was referring to this Hollywood Reporter article. Julian Margolis, Greg Berlanti, Mayim Bialik, among 260 signatories of a letter to the Film Academy critiquing Jewish exclusion from diversity standards. Apparently, Hollywood set out to try and ensure greater diversity in Hollywood and they enacted standards for groups that some people like to claim have been historically excluded from Hollywood, even though they plainly haven't, like Black people or Muslims or various immigrants or gay people, whatever. And even though they were supposedly defending diversity, they did not include the group that has been the most violently excluded from Hollywood since the beginning, which is Jews. And that's what these Jewish celebrities with the assistance, the very brave assistance of the ADL, were objecting to. And we did do a segment on it. Here you can see it was System Update. We said we don't really always praise the ADL, but credit where it's due. It's past time for that. It's far past time that someone spoke up for the most underrepresented group in Hollywood. And as I said, we haven't returned to this topic because I don't think I've gotten very many more threatening. I've had to confront many more threatening climates than after that segment that we did. All kinds of Arab studio heads calling up and saying, you better stop talking about this, anonymous threats. This is the one dark, dirty secret that America still harbors, the one kind of overt systemic discrimination that is still permitted, which is the exclusion of Jews from Hollywood, to the point where it takes a brave whistleblower like this actor to come forward. And those of us in journalism who try and cover this, we're putting a lot on the line to do so, but nowhere near as much as these brave whistleblowers. So let me show you just some of this disturbing footage. This is from the interview where Mark Furstein is at the Y on 92nd Street and on the Upper West Side. And he's speaking about anti-Semitism in general, but his particular struggle in confronting it as somebody who's tried to make their livelihood, earn their livelihood in Hollywood. And he's had some success.
I know it's a bit too much. He's really milking it. I mean, we get it, you know. And I've already covered those clips, so I'm not gonna watch them.
Cito, can we get your stance on Palestine, brother? Now he's talking so fast. Stop. Why not, sir? Please, can we please ask?
I'm not answering that question.
Why not?
He's
heard of this
Oh no,
before.
he's
So
got
we're
his
going-
bow tie on today. He's having a great day. Please, no inconveniences for this man.
famouser than anybody. So what? This man is speed walking. Sir, I say, sir, please. Now back to our perturb. He's still looking perturbed. 20 minutes later, he's like a wax figure. Sir, no stance, sir. No comment, sir. You are just being all. So you are all out of whack. So we are just gonna ask one final time.
No comment. Have a good one.
So I'm sorry, sir, but you know, if you said Free Palestine, you would be a legend.
Have a good one.
Hold on, one more time. Can you say that one more time?
No comment. Have a good one.
Thank you, man. What are you writing in that notepad, sir? Are you writing your feelings? You're writing what happened today?
You can tell he's got a lack of social skills. He's very uncomfortable. He doesn't know how to deal with this information. I mean, with this situation.
Right now, I'm trying to have an information error with someone.
About what?
Right now,
He's so autistic.
Whose career?
Not
yours. Doesn't matter whose career, jabroni.
So, if you don't mind, I'm trying to do this. Now, if you're going to try to interrupt this, I can go ask Capitol Police to remove you guys.
You can go ask
there
Capitol
you
Police.
go.
No, you can
So
go
if you
do
don't
that.
mind-
Well, since you just threatened, I'm going to stand right here.
Okay, good one.
She just has to jump up with him. You see that? Let's go.
This is getting good.
So, unfortunately, we're allowed to film, so I told you. He said he's having a meeting. I said, sir, you might have to take your meeting to a private area because this is a public space, brother.
Just don't harass them.
I'm not harassing. I'm using my voice. I respect the rules of the building. I have no issues with the rules of the building. Thank you, brother. You guys run to the police like toddlers run to their mommy. You guys should be ashamed of yourself. Look at him. That is not your mommy. He's not going to help you. He's not going to kiss you. He's not going to hug you. Look, he's so happy with the police. Look how happy he looks. Another textbook study. Thank you for your participation.
Another
in that study.
textbook study. Beautiful. Love that. Go to the
For the
4-minute
world.
mark to learn
But
a new
with Israeli
word.
tourists,
All right.
there's something else at play. The disregard for local law, the entitlement, the disrespect.
Yes, we've seen this clip before, Robin. You weren't here earlier this week, a day or two ago. We covered this very clip, and the new word is fire, I think. Something like that. Who cares? Yes, they think we're all suckers. We get it.
Good luck at spreading propaganda.
Yeah.
Good luck celebrating while your own people were slaughtered. You fucking people celebrated and danced in the street while children were murdered in Mina.
Wow, he went bloomin' based on that ass.
You asked for your own people to be slaughtered. You're the biggest sellouts I've ever seen in my life. You're even worse sellouts than Miami Cuban. You shut the hell up, you Persian Gusana. You asked for your own people to be killed. You sell you. Yeah, I don't want Iranians to be killed. You did. And your crown prince. You're a Zionist.
Go talk about this.
His wife got fucked by a yoga instructor. That's the fucking guy you worship who you think is going to be the king.
I've never heard Max use so many expletives and come at people so hard.
You wanted schoolgirls. Who killed all the kids in Mina? Who killed the kids in Mina? Who did it? The government you asked to bomb. You worship Israel. You want the Gaza genocide. You love the country that slaughters on
Who's this guy?
You're the biggest sellout I've ever seen.
Max brought his hype man. You see that? Nice.
Who gets based there? Who the base there?
I've ever seen. No one respects you here.
Who RTC put it there? Not America.
You're a sellout. You're
Shame on you. Shame on you.
So we are at Busboys and Poets since they
Oh
love
my
to
god.
support
Did you try calling your lawyer about it?
Islamic Republic regime supporters so much. Max Blumenthal, he's speaking at Busboys and Poets right now regarding the funeral of Ali Khamenei. And he's basically coming to say how beautiful and stunning it was and how probably 14 million people showed up there and how everything is just so good and free in Iran. 40,000 and more
I like how she's got her hype girl here.
people did
Will they cry, you think? You think they're going to cry about it?
not die. People daily are not getting executed.
So we're here today. We brought a big banner that says on it, Islamic Republic killed more than 40,000 people in just 2 days.
And to be
In
exact,
just 2 days.
2 days, 8 hours.
Wow. 40,000 people in 2 days. That is a lot of people. Where are these people? Where can you show me where the grave site is? That's absurd. 40,000 people? I heard it was 6 million in 5 seconds. I don't know. 40,000 people in 2 days? The gross undercount. These two should be ashamed of themselves. Denying the Iranian genocide.
8 hours, they managed to massacre more than 40,000 people. And this guy is here right now. In 8 hours, they managed.
You just said 48 hours. Now you're saying 8 hours? Am I going crazy here?
Since they love to support regime support.
Yeah, let's look at their banner. Where's the banner? Didn't they have a banner? Where is it?
So we are at Busboys and Poets since they love to support Islamic Republic regime supporters so much. Max Blumenthal, he's speaking at Busboys and Poets right now regarding the funeral of Ali Khamenei. And he's basically coming to say how beautiful and stunning it was and how probably 14 million people showed up there and how everything is just so good and free in Iran. 40,000 and more people did not die. People did.
Everything's so good and free in Iran. That's what he's going as he's speaking about Ali Khamenei's funeral, which he just returned from a trip to go be a part of. And why is their supreme leader dead? Because we assassinated them. Why? That's not that everything's well and fine in Iran.
Daily are not getting executed.
So we're here today. We brought a big banner that says on it, Islamic Republic killed more than 40,000 people in just 2 days.
Okay, so there you go. 2 days. That's 48 hours. Now listen to what she says. And
2 days, 8 hours. In 8 hours, they managed to massacre more than 40,000 people. And this guy is here right now.
So it's not 2 days, it was 8 hours.
Basically praising the guy that ordered direct hit on those 2 days. Praising a dictator, an oppressor. That is crazy. And
And she's praising the direct hit on the school.
boys are supporting people like that. This is not the first time. 2 weeks ago, there was another Nyack group that was here.
So as we were holding the banner, people who were going inside, they had different reactions. Some of them spat. Some of them called us liars.
And finally, when Max arrived, his
Accurate.
reaction, obviously very terrorist supporter, regime-like.
Regime-like. Okay, sure. Sure thing.
No need for weapons with what these guys are at, because they'll practically destroy the universe. Would you say these are some of the grindiest you'd seen?
Pardon me?
Would you say these are some of the grindiest you'd seen?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know that whenever they come through, they're gonna tear it, and they don't care who they see fall down.
You know? I don't know.
It's just screaming for it.
What?
It's just screaming for it.
Mm-hmm.
It thrills, but it spills too. With those bad ones.
What?
It thrills, it spills, but with those bad ones.
What are you talking about?
At the circus.
What about it?
It's gonna be thrills and spills with those bad ones.
Yeah.
Oh!
Special report unveils sexual assault against foreign workers in Israel. Why am I not surprised? A Jewish man in New York City eats at a restaurant, then suddenly pretends he's too drunk to find his wallet, hoping the act will let him walk out without paying. Oh my goodness.
Oh, you like alcohol and britches.
The antics that they pull, all to save a few shekels.
Let me get the cars. Let me get the cars. I can move the cigarette.
Everything they do is related back to money.
Go get it. You gotta give me the car. Go get it. You gotta give me the car. I'm gonna get it. Go get it. I'm gonna get it without the car. Go get it. How am I gonna get it without the car? Go get it. Go get it. You gonna pay for it, right? I have. You gonna pay for it? Yeah.
Wow.
Dr. Hussam Abu Safia was arrested back in late December 2024 on allegations he was affiliated with Hamas, claims his supporters have repeatedly said are unfounded. This was the last time he was seen.
I really don't want to, Comrade Cranky. Do I have to? Are you going to make me?
A brief appearance on a video screen in Israel's Supreme Court last month during an unsuccessful hearing challenging the latest 6-month extension of his detention. But his well-being has deteriorated since then, according to his lawyers and the advocacy group Physicians for Human Rights Israel. His lawyer has revealed Dr. Abu Safia was brought to their last meeting in the Nitzan prison east of Tel Aviv, handcuffed and shackled. He had fresh and severe injuries to his head, to the extent his lawyer initially didn't recognise him and said he'd been beaten daily. He reportedly experienced difficulty breathing and speaking, and a number of times it seemed he was on the verge of losing consciousness. Dr. Abu Safia had been held in an underground interrogation facility and reportedly told his lawyer, "This is the last time you will see me. They brought me here to kill me. I don't see myself surviving. This is the end." The Israel Prison Service described the allegations as false and without factual basis, but it also refused to comment specifically on Dr. Abu Safia's condition, citing privacy and security considerations. But it did say it rejects all allegations of torture, abuse, starvation and denial of medical treatment, insisting that prisoners and detainees are held in Israeli prisons in accordance with law. Dr. Abu Safia was the director of the Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, northern Gaza, and he posted videos online detailing the pressure on Gaza's health system during Israel's bombardment of the Strip, including during a months-long siege of the hospital in late 2024. Dr. Abu Safia is being held under Israel's unlawful enemy combatants law, which gives authorities sweeping powers to detain someone for months at a time. And despite the claims against him, Israel is still yet to charge Dr. Abu Safia, even after 18 months in custody. While his case is well known because of his profile, thousands more Palestinians are also held in administrative detention. It's a feature of Israel's prison system, which has repeatedly been criticised by human rights organisations around the world.
Damn. So is the guy, like, still alive? I mean...
Big tech corporations are working closely with the U.S. government to try to criminalize protests and opposition and dissent. Here's another shocking report, or maybe not so shocking report, that was published by the major British newspaper, The Guardian, that reveals how the U.S. Department of Justice is working with Elon Musk, the first trillionaire in history, in order to pollute impoverished communities in the U.S. This article notes that the Trump administration is coming to the defense of Elon Musk in a lawsuit over claims that his artificial intelligence company, xAI, is polluting residential neighborhoods in North Mississippi. The lawsuit was filed by the NAACP, which is a civil rights organization led by Black Americans, and they allege that xAI and its subsidiary, MZX Tech, set up dozens of methane gas turbines to power its data center in Mississippi without air permits. These turbines are emitting toxic pollutants in violation of the Clean Air Act in a low-income majority Black community in Mississippi. So the U.S. government is supporting these oligarchs from Silicon Valley as they are polluting impoverished communities. The Department of Justice says this data center is being used to train and develop AI models that are, quote, critical to the economy and the Department of War, end quote. And the Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Justice Department said, quote, the Department of Justice will not sit idly by while private organizations use environmental laws to undermine our national security, end quote. This is absolutely dystopian. Wow. The U.S. government is portraying civil rights organizations that are trying to represent average working class Americans in impoverished communities as...
Suddenly they have a problem with private organizations?
National security threats because they don't want impoverished communities to be polluted by these Silicon Valley oligarchs who are a trillionaire now, or they have hundreds of billions of dollars of wealth. The U.S. government is literally supporting the richest people in the world against the poorest people in American society.
That's just the cost of doing business these days.
And the crazy narrative that is being promoted by the U.S. government and also by groups funded by Silicon Valley is that the protests in the U.S. against the pollution carried out by data centers, well, if you
It's all linked to national security. We got to fight China. How dare you care
these
about
data
your environment?
Centers destroying your community, then the U.S. government wants everyone to believe that you're actually a stooge of China. And I'm not exaggerating. Axios reported
you might as well be a Chinese operative.
Big tech corporations are funding AI groups to spread disinformation, claiming that protests in the U.S. against data centers are all part of a Chinese plot.
Totally. China, always China. China for the win.
The Iran war could cost...
Oh, cool. Here we go. The actual cost of the Iranian war. Remember when Pete Hegseth said that it was $37.5 billion? Let's see what the real number is.
34 times what Pentagon officials have admitted so far. We did the math since Pete Hegseth clearly didn't. Stick with me. The ceasefire between the US and Iran fell apart, and Trump is declaring this a new conflict, which means he gets 60 more days before he needs to ask Congress for permission for the war. Hegseth originally said the war would cost about $25 billion. Then he said $29 billion. Now he's asking for $90 billion more. So now seems like as good a time as any to check in on the total cost of this war, because we've been talking to the experts and they think the Pentagon is doing...
So they had reports of it, the cost of the war being $103 billion at the beginning of July, or at the end of June. The U.S. spent $103 billion in the first 120 days of the Iran war. Operations, mobilization, administration, and combat cost $28.5 billion. The weapons cost $46.7 billion. The losses, the damage, the destroyed military assets, $20 billion. The subsidies paying for Israel's bombs and interceptors, $3 billion. And other miscellaneous costs to non-military U.S. agencies, $4.8 billion, for a grand total of $103 billion at the first 120 days of the Iran war.
Some serious accounting tricks to make this war look cheaper than it really is. Here's how. First, the Pentagon usually only reports direct costs of the war. How much fuel did we spend? How much did we pay the deployed troops? But they ignore the hidden costs. Those costs are things...
Shiesty motherfuckers.
Like long-term veterans health care and disability benefits. For perspective, we're still paying veterans costs for World War II. The second trick they use is financing the war with debt, but ignoring the cost of interest. In the past, when the US went to war, it would typically raise taxes to finance...
See, it always goes back to the banks.
That war. But we don't do that anymore. Instead, we take on debt to pay for war, which means the government also pays more and more interest. That interest is a cost of the war that they will never include in their estimates, and it's costly. Third, they ignore cost increases. The war with Iran is using a lot of missiles that the US bought years ago. Years ago, those missiles were cheaper, but inflation, supply shocks, and defense industry price gouging have shifted up those costs. So when the US goes to replace that missile, it will cost significantly more to buy the second time around. A Tomahawk missile cost $2 million when the US stockpiled them most recently, but they cost somewhere between $3 and $5 million today. Fourth, and finally, there is an infrastructure cost that they are ignoring or hiding. Estimates of the cost of the war aren't considering the cost to repair US bases that have been damaged, probably because they don't want to admit to the damage at all. All these blind spots and omissions, they add up. It's why a lot of people balked at Hegseth's initial estimate that the war would cost just $29 billion. And it's why experts are saying that over the next decade, this war will cost the US closer to $1 trillion. You might think that $1 trillion sounds like a lot, a far-fetched figure, but I would point you to these estimates for previous wars that the US fought in the region. And remember, Hegseth and Trump now want an additional $90 billion in funding for the Pentagon on top of the $1.5 trillion 2027 defense budget, the biggest in history. Funny how quickly this all starts to add up.
And also, what about the rise in oil prices too? The inflation of oil prices, that's got to be an expense to the war. So there were 4 reasons he gave as to why the total funding of this war far exceeds $37.5 billion, which is what Pete Hegseth said in a sworn testimony earlier this week. Meanwhile, there's reports as of July 8th that the Pentagon had spent $103 billion.
New conflict, which means...
The 4 reasons that he gave in this video were, one of them was inflation. Another one was the payment to veterans, military benefits. The other was the omission of all the damages that the United States has sustained.
He gets 60 more days before he needs to ask Congress for permission for the war. Hegseth originally said the war would cost about $25 billion. Then he said $29 billion. Now he's asking for $90 billion more. So now seems like as good a time as any to check in on the total cost of this war, because we've been talking to the experts and they think the Pentagon is doing some serious accounting tricks to make this war look cheaper than it really is. Here's how. First, the Pentagon usually only reports direct costs of the war. How much fuel did we spend? How much did we pay the deployed troops? But they ignore the hidden costs. Those costs are things like long-term veterans' health care and disability benefits. For perspective, we're still paying veterans' costs for World War II. The second trick they use is financing the war with debt, but ignoring the cost of interest. In the past, when the US went to war, it would typically raise taxes.
Yep, the interest paid to the banks. That's right. That was the other one.
So I got a whole bunch of men trying to muscle me into voting for the NDAA. Section
names. Who?
I
Who
don't
are
know
these
their,
men?
I don't know their freaking names. They're staffers.
They're staffers.
All right, listen to my story. If you want my story, I'm gonna give it to you. All right. So all these staffers are in there trying to get me to vote for the NDAA. I want to vote for the NDAA. Section 219 is still in there. It's a big tech swap between us and Israel. We don't do that with anyone. I understand in the past, we've given them money for the Iron Dome and then they get to keep the tech and we don't get any of it back. So I understand that, but it's a big issue on the left and the right. And many of my constituents have reached out. They don't want this provision in the bill. Well, the White House doesn't want it in the bill. Secretary Hegseth doesn't want it in the bill. So I'm in the back waiting for a call from the secretary. I'm told that call is coming. I'm talking to someone underneath him, and I'm told the vote's going to stay open. They closed the vote. And so now I am forced to talk to TMZ. While I do have an issue that we talked about off record, I don't want to be on camera this week, and I've been on camera more than any other week. I am talking out of the side of my mouth like a damn politician because my Botox hasn't caught up on this side. Maybe in 2 days, this side will catch up to the other side. But here we are.
Boebert being forced to talk to TMZ to expose the fact that staffers are pressuring elected officials to vote in favor of NDAA Section 219. Keg's breath opposed. What's the game here? Is it optics or something more nefarious? I'm tired of the circus too. So, did the NDAA resolution pass the Senate? No, not yet at least. The fiscal 2027 has not passed the Senate. Okay. So they're referring to the House bill, the House version. Okay, we saw that. Let's see. Yemen's Houthis claim attacks on 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea.
Well, Yemen's Ansarullah Houthi group says it's targeted 2 oil tankers in the Red Sea, saying the ships were violating its naval blockade on Saudi Arabia. The incident reportedly took place about 130 kilometres off the Saudi coast. The Saudi-owned tanker Incelia caught fire after an unknown projectile hit its front side. Maritime officials say there are no known casualties. A second vessel, the Layla, has reportedly also caught fire in the same attack. Well, let's bring in Kulsum Sharif, who is standing by for us here in Doha. And 2 ships being targeted in the Red Sea. What more do we know at this stage? Have Saudi officials commented at all?
At this point, we have a confirmation from Saudi state media saying that a vessel has been targeted in the Red Sea. It was on fire. It caught fire, but the crew members have been safe and relevant authorities have actually managed to secure the vessel. Now, this comes after Yemen's Ansarullah Houthi group claimed a responsibility for attacks on tankers in the Red Sea. Now, this is the latest flashpoint we are seeing in the war between US and Iran, with the Houthis declaring a maritime blockade, so to speak, of the kingdom on Monday. Now, Saudi has been relying on its oil exports on the Red Sea after the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz in the past few months that we've seen. Now, this poses a new challenge for Saudi Arabia and also a global energy supply route yet again being held off after the Strait of Hormuz, which was responsible for about 20%.
Mood Basket is a based Giga Chad. Welcome in to the being an esteemed member of the stream. Thank you, Mood Basket.
Global
our first
oil
based
and
Giga Chad.
natural gas
That's awesome.
supplies. Now, when we look at the Bab al-Mandeb Strait and the Red Sea that connects to the Suez Canal, we're looking at nearly 15% of global sea trade that stands to be affected. Now, the Houthi says since they've declared the blockade, nearly 10 ships have been either turned back or have changed route.
And there have been more Iranian strikes on the Gulf overnight and into the morning. Can you just bring us up to date with what has actually happened? The IRGC have made a statement addressing the Kuwaiti people directly.
Yes, absolutely. They have addressed the people of Kuwait, saying that America that has violated your territorial integrity and not us. And they've gone on to explain why they have attacked the U.S. military bases in the region. We know that the Ali al-Salam base has come under attack in the most recent fight, and they say the fighters also targeted a telecommunications tower.
Hey, thank you, Purple Nurple.
In response
Welcome
to U.S.
in.
attacks on telecommunication towers in Iran. So Iran has basically laid out a tit-for-tat measure that we've seen in the past 12 days of the renewed
That's
fighting.
a good question.
Iran
When
basically says it's an
Senate
eye
vote?
for an eye after U.S. President Donald Trump said that U.S. forces will target an Iranian bridge or a
not
power
scheduled.
plant if a vessel gets attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. So Iran says it's going to play out the same way. And we've seen the GCC countries actually bear the brunt of the attacks between the U.S. and Iran. We've seen Kuwait repeatedly come under attack, not just U.S. military targets in the region, but also crucial civilian infrastructure. So the GCC countries in a unified voice want this war to end. In fact, Qatar, Egypt and Pakistan have also proposed a 10-day ceasefire so that people can get back to the negotiating table.
Okay, thank you so much for all of that.
Okay, so we've got the Strait of Hormuz blockaded, and that accounts for 20% of the oil supply in the global economy. We've got the Bab al-Mandab Strait now blockaded by the Houthis entering into the Red Sea, which is where 60% of world's commerce flows. So it's even more of a global choke point than the strait itself. So this is quite an escalation, as I understand it. Let's see what this Rabbi Shapiro-Stein
It
has
happens
to
to
say.
be that Jewish law permits the enslavement of any non-Jew, white or black. That's another question which got raised. But that has nothing to do with racism. That's just a heter that we are allowed
not racist. That's just Jewish.
to enslave.
That's just according to God.
Non-Jewish populations, perhaps to bring them to mitzvos, bring them to Torah and the like, but it's
Oh,
not
yes, we enslave them because we want to help them see the light to becoming a Jew.
a black thing for sure.
But it's a black thing for sure. He's like, this isn't racist, but I'm going to go ahead and be racist right now.
Now, it happens to be that Jewish law permits the enslavement of any non-Jew, white or black.
Jewish law permits the enslavement of any non-Jew, white or black, says
the
this
enslavement
rabbi.
of-
You know what his name is? Let's say it together, class. Rabbi Yitzhak Britowitz. Rabbi Yitzhak. Rabbi Yitzhak Britowitz. Oy vey.
Yeah, actually, Jewish law, it permits the enslavement of everybody. Every non-Jew, white or black, it's not racist. You're all equally slaves. Doesn't matter the color of your skin, more or less. It has to do with your Jewishness.
Any non-Jew, white or black. That's another question which got raised. But that has nothing to do with racism. That's just a head.
That has nothing to do with racism. It's just a hetcher. It has nothing to do with racism. It's just a hetcher, you guys. That's not racism. It's not. I promise you.
That we are allowed to enslave non-Jewish populations. Perhaps
populations. We are allowed to enslave the non-Jewish population.
to bring them to mitzvahs, bring them to Torah and the like, but it's not a black thing for sure.
It's not a black thing, it's the Torah thing.
Why does God make his favorites look like goblins? That's a good question. It's a very good question.
To be.
To be.
Oh my God, I'll never get over the voice. Oy vey.
Any nigger who had the slightest inclination to vote for Mondami, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. You sick. Mondami had a celebration down in City Hall of all the immigrants, all the Muslims, all the immigrants down there. No niggas.
Oh
Here's
my
a
goodness.
man that
is this we disavow all racism of any kind in accordance with YouTube community guidelines always. Right, Mood Basket? Right, Mood Basket. I don't know. Is it it might be. It might be. I don't think we can use that word in here. Nope, we're not going to watch that either. I don't want to watch an Epsteinite eat pizza. Come on.
It's classic American stuff.
Why
This is
did you
street
post
down,
this?
and there'll be a marketplace.
Anthony Scaramucci eating pizza. Why would I want to watch 25 minutes of Anthony Scaramucci eating pizza? Is you crazy? Oh my goodness.
Breaking news. We have the world premiere of the new music video called The Jeffrey Epstein Plane. Check this out.
Thank you, Purple Nurple. That's awfully kind of you for gifting another membership to the community.
This is the official ICE anthem. Get up! If you're in that ICE detention center right now, I need you all to get up and start dancing in front of the ICE. Hell yeah! Bunch of glorified mall cops. 2 weeks of training. Super soakers. Let's go.
This might be TOS copyright. Whoa! All right, Mood Basket. Thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. That's awesome. Setting us up for success here on the new page. Appreciate you, homie.
Guys, we don't need them around. I say, guys, get the.
Is it a day ending in Y, Destro? Of course, I'm still watching the slop. Slop is life. Ball is life. I slop till I drop, all right? Every motherfucking day of the week.
Hell out of town. I say, guys, cause you hate all the brown. There's no need to detain Latina people. Guys, I'll say it again.
You will watch slop and you will be happy. There is only slop.
Everybody, guys, you're all my best friends. Come on, guys, cause the fun never ends.
This is aggressive and I don't like it at all, actually.
There's no need to hate.
Not one of those voices I want to hear in song. Even if I satirically agree with its politics, which I think I do. I was like, that's how it should have gone down. Huh? Totally. Remember when people used to say totes my goats? That must be a millennial thing. Nobody says that anymore. Was it ever cool?
Maybe for some we have the wrong nationality, the wrong faith, the wrong skin color. But we are humans, and we should be treated as such. Is there a UN charter for Israel that is different from the charter you all have?
Yes, actually.
Tell us. Is there an international law for them, an international law for us? Do they have the right to kill, and the only right we have is to die? What the hell does Israel need to do more for this council to act under Chapter 7? What more can they
do? Hey, Max, thank you, brother. I appreciate you reporting me. For excellence? Is that why you reported me? Max, are you crying? Will you cry about it? Do you think that you might cry? Because maybe that'll make you feel better too. Guys, Max reported me. What am I gonna do? What shall ever I do? Max reported me. My day is ruined. Thanks, Max. I'm gonna go cry about it. Max. Damn you. Damn you, Max. Damn you, Maximilian.
For this council to act under Chapter 7? Or will this council be the last place on...
Thank you, Bubbles. I appreciate you. Bubbles just gifted 5 memberships to the community. We're growing. And then on, what does that say? On Twitch. I didn't see who gifted its membership, but thank you on Twitch. I couldn't read it. It was too small. What your mom said to me. Unfortunately. Max report and fall. Report maxing.
Earth that cannot recognize a threat.
What? Oh, I mean, report me for what? What did I do?
To peace when they see it.
You don't report me. I report you.
When it is so glaring, so undeniable.
Yeah.
You are
to report people is it's pretty childish.
Witnessing the attempt
but
to
some people just don't have a life.
Annihilate a nation.
This isn't Danny Danon, by the way. Raven's tongue. I don't know if that's... Was he just on the screen? Because...
Destroy a nation. It is not even hidden.
I thought at first, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, Danny Danon. I had that vibe, but no, this is a delegate for Palestine.
It is in plain sight. And yet the very tools designed to respond to these situations are not being used.
That's right. In America, I report you. That's exactly how it goes. Oh, he was before. Okay. If I don't report you, somebody else gonna report you. Okay, he was showing. I was distracted because I got reported by Max.
So which one is it? Are Palestinian lives not worth saving? Or does Israel have a license to kill? Maybe
Well, I went to Iran on a press visa, just like every other journalist who was there. All the mainstream members of the press entered the same way I did. I applied through the Iranian e-visa system, picked up my press visa at the interest section, and went in and covered the largest funeral, not just the largest funeral, I think it was the largest gathering in human history. And I gained insights I would have never gotten about the state of the Islamic Republic and its constituents and what they wanted as, we were on the brink of returning to a U.S.-Israeli imposed war on Iran. While I was there, I was able to interview officials. I interviewed the mayor of Tehran, Ali Reza Zakani, who presided over the 10 million strong funeral procession for Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. I interviewed academics. I interviewed negotiators. I participated in a press conference with all these other members of the Foreign Press Corps from CNN, ITV, Guardian, NBC. And I was just doing journalism around the country. And most importantly, I was able to report on the first phase of the war and the war crimes committed by my government. I think I was the first American reporter to visit a neighborhood in eastern Tehran where 40 people were massacred when the U.S. dropped 8 bombs on an entire neighborhood. I went inside the ruins of a home where an entire family had been slaughtered except for 2 members who had been out of town. I visited the Rafinia Synagogue, a Jewish congregation in Iran, which had been destroyed by Israeli bombing. Yes, Israel attacked a synagogue with 2 missiles. And the last time I went to Iran last year, I produced a documentary about the Jewish community in Iran. So this was of enormous interest to me. I went to the Gandhi Hospital, which had its ICU unit and IVF clinic destroyed in a U.S. bombing after the U.S. bombed the IRIB media complex across the street, targeting journalists. And I visited the Azadi Stadium, a volleyball and wrestling stadium, which hosted international competitions, which was bombed deliberately by the United States to ruins as, in kind of a preview of the DHS trying to rig the FIFA competition against Iran's national team by denying them entry. Right. So I gained all this journalistic insight.
Right, but my question for you would be what I think a lot of your critics say, which is, okay, but how much attention and reporting have you done on, for example, the many thousands of civilians that the regime in Iran brutally murdered in January, for example? Have you been to the side of that? Have you been to investigate that?
I did, and I'll get into that. I will directly address that, but let me just wrap up this point that I was making. While I was there, I was targeted by allies of the administration who were representing a foreign apartheid state called Israel, the Canary Mission, for example, which is based out of a foundation in Jerusalem called Megamat Shalom. It is not an American group. Targeted me, painting me as some kind of extremist who had gone to this funeral to honor Khamenei when I went to report on it from my unique point of view. Laura Loomer not only called for me to be arrested and hauled off my flight and dared DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullen, who has also been subject to Israeli influence, to do that. She called for me to be murdered along with every other journalist who is on the scene. She called for the United States military to massacre all funeral attendees, which would include me.
I was enjoying that clip. Let's see. Jewish community stands with Zoran Mamdani.
It's our great honor to welcome the Honorable Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani. We all hope and pray for his success and the success of the city of New York, and especially for
Look at that auditorium. My good, that's a lot of tiny hats.
New York, and especially for success in staying a friend with the Jewish community of New York City. We welcome.
Why do they have to wear, it's not my religion to wear the hat. Why do they make them wear a tiny hat? That's just another public humiliation ritual.
Mayor-elect Mamdani.
They're so yeah, you're right. They're concentrated. Almost like they're in some sort of camp. of sorts. And it's a recreation center.
Well, first of all, the NDAA stands for the National Defense Authorization Act, and it's one of the few bills that passes every year. I've been here 14 years. There have been 14 NDAAs. So you can set your clock on the fact that...
Because he's a Democrat socialist. Because he's got a D next to his name. Because Mamdani is a Zionist.
This bill will pass. So anything that gets in it is, dangerous as a cocked gun. It's going to become law. Well, this bill is...
Mamdani is a Zionist until proven otherwise.
Hundreds of pages long. And, in one of those hundreds of pages, it's actually 5 pages long, is Section 219. And it was...
The only way I'd believe that Mamdani is not a Zionist is if he arrests Netanyahu.
Section 224, but it's now Section 219. And it calls for the integration of our military...
I like how they just switched the numbered section. They went from 224 to 219 thinking nobody would notice.
Technology and the supply chains that produce our, high-tech military equipment to be integrated with Israel's. Now, we don't have this kind of, bilateral agreement with any other country in the world, and I would argue that we shouldn't in order to protect our sovereignty and to protect our national secrets. If you wanted to share one thing at a time, let's say, we wanted to collaborate on missile defense systems, I think that's fine. The president can do that, just by virtue of controlling the military. But what they're doing here is legislatively, they are appointing a person. I joke that this person will eventually be a cabinet member, but right now it's a lower level position who will be in charge of the integration. And that means that this project will have a lifespan that outlasts the commander-in-chief. Regardless of who the next president is, this provision lasts forever. And it's in the National Defense Authorization Act. It's coming to a vote. A lot of people have, saw this. I saw this back in June and offered an amendment. By the way, there are 1,400 amendments that have been offered to the National Defense Authorization Act here in the House. My amendment was amendment number 2. I was the second person to offer an amendment to the NDAA, and that's because I saw this troubling provision in there. Now, what they've decided to do is they've decided to block my amendment. So there will be no vote and no debate on Section 219 and whether it should be in the NDAA or whether it should not be in the NDAA.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers that were tattooed on every prisoner's arm at Auschwitz were actually IBM inventory codes. Before the Holocaust could happen, the Nazis needed to find all the Jews, and to do that they created a bespoke census. The company that built the census equipment for them was called Die Homeg. This company was 85% owned by IBM, and it was IBM punch card machinery that was used both for this census and in the concentration camps themselves. Every concentration camp had a Hollerith department, which is literally named after the IBM software. The founder of IBM even accepted a medal from Hitler in 1937. He was given the Merit Cross of the German Eagle with Star for work in bettering world trade relations. He wore it, he kept it, he never
Crazy.
apologized.
They had to tag them all to keep tabs on them. Make sure they got some eyeballs on these Jays. You never know what they're up to.
The Chase National Bank doubled its business in Paris during the Nazi occupation. The bank kept its Paris branch open during the entire Nazi occupation. Winthrop W. Aldrich ran the Chase National Bank from 1933 to 1953. He was the son of the U.S. Senator Nelson Aldrich, and the brother-in-law of John D. Rockefeller. The manager of the Paris branch of the Chase Bank was a man called Carlos Niederman. In May...
You're right. That was antiseptic. That's my bad. I'll be sure to swing some chickens tonight. Offer it all up to Ball. Only he can save me.
1942, he wrote to his supervisors in Manhattan, and he described the business environment in occupied Paris as booming. That's the word he used, booming.
Basset Hound, welcome in. Thank you for that $20 super. Just got here. Got tired of watching everybody's mom on that one site. Starting with only could use a gator. What are we talking about here? That comment started off okay and then quickly went south. Dark. Whose moms are you? Only Moms? Is that the website? I don't need a website. Because all your mothers are just lined up at the door. As soon as I'm done with one, I'm like, all right, next. It's just how I do it.
A 1944 U.S. Treasury investigation confirmed that the Chase Bank maintained accounts for the German embassy and German firms, cooperated with Nazi instructions to freeze and confiscate the accounts of Jewish customers, and sold discounted Reichmarks to German Americans with the proceeds going to the Nazi government. 1944 U.S. Treasury investigation found all of this, but no Chase executive was ever charged. The investigation was shelved, and when the war ended, Chase hired a new vice president in charge of foreign loans. His name was Thomas McKittrick, and he had spent the previous 6 years running the Bank of International Settlements. That would be the institution that processed looted Nazi gold throughout the war. Chase Bank hired him in 1946 and never offered any statement about this. He had started working at the Bank for International Settlements in May 1939, 3 months after Germany occupied Czechoslovakia.
By now, you're probably beginning to understand that the Americans loved the Nazis before 1939 or 40.
Under his presidency, the Bank
and even still afterwards,
International Settlements operated as a clearing institution for both the Axis and the Allies. McKittrick is on record in 1943 calling Emil Pool the Nazi...
And vice versa too, that's right, yeah. The United States government, and this is not, I'm not making this up, you know, in the 1930s, the United States government was very pro-Nazi. And they looked at Hitler as really keeping the Germans in line, and, you know, obviously the Nazi regime was heavily committed to a policy of reprivatization, selling off more state-owned property to the biggest corporations in Germany, and also American corporations, who were then used as inputs for the war against the Americans, against the Allies. And these corporations were still making money off the German war machine, which you could argue, and Michael Parenti, for example, has argued that that is treasonous, traitorous, of course. Why wasn't, you know, IBM or General Motors or DuPont and other corporations at the time, these huge transnational American corporations, why weren't they brought before the Nuremberg trials for being complicit in the Nazi Holocaust? Hello.
Economist, his friend. He described Pool as having conducted business in a manner giving no cause for any criticism whatsoever.
I have not. I have not made a backup to the backup for YouTube. That's a good question. I should. And I do have other pages that I could go back to, but they're all... I don't know if it, after some time, whether or not YouTube will like reinstate the page, but I think I have an option to where I can reinstate an older page, even though they told me my first page was permanently demonetized, permanently suspended. Like, I can post, but I can't, generate any revenue. And, this is all a lot of work, of course. So, so I started a new page, but I could potentially go back to that older page. Not that you care, I'm sure you care, but that's a long-winded answer. TLDR is no, I don't have another page, really.
McKittrick also has an OSS file number, 644. He met regularly with Alan Dulles. After the war, Alan Dulles went on to become the director of the CIA.
Thank you, Thugbone. I do have a Kik profile, and I just never use it. But I am on Kik, and I'm on Rumble. I'm on virtually every website that you can think of, but I don't actively post on all of them. And it's, from what I've experienced, it's been rather tough building an audience on Rumble and Kik, and even Twitch for that matter. But Twitch was the first one I joined for streaming. So YouTube is it's been a lot easier, even despite all the censorship and the suspensions and the bannings, and the underwear rippings and the diaper soilings. It still seems to be easier to build an audience than other Truth Social. Sure, I'm not on Truth Social. That's one, and I'm not on Grindr, unfortunately, Loggerbomb.
One of the most contentious figures in American history. During the war, though, he was head of the OSS station in Bern. McKittrick was providing Dulles with information. The same man who was clearing funds for the Nazis and calling their top economist his friend was also meeting and providing intelligence.
Well, if I'm not on Grindr, what would make you think that I'm on Grindr Plus? And by the way, is there such a thing as Grindr Plus? And how do you know that there is such a thing as Grindr Plus? Can we look into this guy? Moderators, let's seize his hard drive.
The Americans who said that they were fighting this. The Holocaust didn't actually start in 1933. The architecture that made it possible was built much earlier, and it started on Wall Street.
No shit, as it always does. The center, the root of all of our problems. Wall Street.
After World War I, Germany was broke. The Versailles Treaty demanded reparations.
See, she's going to be explaining the very thing that Michael Hudson talks about, which is how after World War I, finance capitalism really reigned control over the land rents, the natural resource rents, the monopoly rents, for all the money lending that they were doing and all the interest that they were accruing from the loans that they were giving for these rent-yielding assets.
The country simply could not pay. So a committee of Wall Street bankers organized by JP Morgan.
And, the banks, they love making war debts. They love making war because then they can charge for the war and accrue credit or accrue the debt that shall be paid back to them with interest. And they will seize countries' entire assets to pay off that debt, leading Michael Hudson to say any debt that is held by foreign creditors capable of reappropriating the national assets and capable of imposing austerity on the host country, the indebted country, to service that foreign debt should be canceled. That debt should be canceled. That is predatory.
And decided that they would be the ones to manage Germany's debt. If you push back even further, you find that JP Morgan had financed World War I as well. They had helped write these conditions in the Versailles Treaty. Then they had lent Germany the money to pay the bill to them. The bank sat on all sides of
Like what the IMF and the World Bank does on a daily basis.
the table during both world wars, collecting commissions on all sides and deciding the treaty terms. JP Morgan's network had helped create the first institution that would manage the reparations, the BIS. The first president of the BIS was an American banker, Gates McGraw, former chairman of the Federal Reserve and the Bank of New York. And the Bank for International Settlements had a special feature written into its founding charter that gave it immunity from seizure, even in wartime, even for Nazi gold. In March 1939, after Germany
Especially for
occupied
Nazi
Prague,
gold.
Montague Norman, the governor of the Bank of England and a BIS board member, authorised the transfer of £6 million in Czech gold from the Bank of England into the Reichsbank. The BIS still operates today. It's based in Basel. It's called the Central Bank of Central Banks. It's a cartel. And of course, Standard Oil of New Jersey, the company that was set up by John D. Rockefeller and that later became ExxonMobil and still exists today, they sent fuel to the Nazis. By the time Germany went to war in 1939, there were 5 main channels that directly injected Wall Street capital into the Nazi economy. They ran through the bank, through the clearinghouse, through the oil cartel, through the technology company, and through a pair of car manufacturers. Car manufacturing being an obvious front for war technology, for weapons. Now the lawyers. Sullivan and Cromwell are a New York-based law firm where Alan Dulles and John Dulles were both partners. Their clients included IG Farben, Crump AG, J. Henry Schroeder Banking Corporation, and Standard Oil's German interests. Alan Dulles also sat on the board of the J. Henry Schroeder Banking Corporation in New York. John McCloy is an excellent example of how the revolving door between Wall Street bankers and the Nazis actually worked. He started his career as a lawyer with Swain and Moore, representing IG Farben in their US legal proceedings. By 1941, he was the Assistant Secretary of War under Henry Stimson. By 1947, he was President of the World Bank. By 1952, he was US High Commissioner for Germany. And by 1960, he was the Chairman of the Chase Manhattan Bank. On the 31st of January 1951, in his capacity as High Commissioner, McCloy announced clemency decisions for 89 German war criminals. He released 32 of them. Of 89 clemency appeals, McCloy granted concessions in 79 cases.
We're streaming?
Out of
Are we
104
live?
defendants.
We're still live? Whoa. I had the craziest dream. I was banging your mom from behind. It was absolutely spectacular.
Convicted in the subsequent Nuremberg trials.
Pop quiz, hot shot. We're going to go on a little impromptu historical lesson. Okay, there's something that's been on my mind. Besides your mother, who I adore, by the way. She's a saint. But I want to take you back to the age of enlightenment. And I want to ask you, if you had to take a stab in the dark, who would you say is the preeminent figure of the age of enlightenment? Does anybody know when the age of enlightenment even was? The 60s? Oh my goodness, we've got some work to do. We really do have some work to do here. So, shoo boy. All right, Thugbone says Ben Franklin. Robert Templeton says Ben Franklin. I mean, that's not a terrible guess. He was part of the Enlightenment. Certainly espoused a lot of Enlightenment ideals. American Revolution, French Revolution, Age of Enlightenment as well. But nobody's... Voltaire, I mean, maybe. I don't know much about Voltaire. Or Kant. His name was Kant, really? Kant. Thomas Paine, yes. Thomas Paine is another one. But still not Leonardo da Vinci. Oh my God. That was the Renaissance. Everybody, can we make fun of Nickel Fist? I asked for an Age of Enlightenment thinker, intellectual, and you gave me the Age of Renaissance? You idiot. What a dum-dum. Wow. So I asked for the Age of Enlightenment. When was that? And some of you said the 60s. I weep for humanity. No. Still, I've asked you for like the one guy, and you still have not said his name. Okay, well, maybe so. Maybe there's a... I mean, it's not like there's just one, but there is one that's on my mind, the one that I want to talk about, okay? Who's called the father of liberalism. Non-pejorative at the time. Liberalism, that the classical liberalism is something that I think all of us can get behind. But this guy's name was John Locke. Okay? John Locke was born in 1632. And he died in 1704. Now, he was an influential English philosopher and physician, widely regarded as the father of liberalism, and one of the most prominent figures of the Enlightenment. So, his groundbreaking work in political philosophy and epistemology fundamentally shaped modern democratic governance and Western thought. So here are the 4 things that John Locke imbued us with as part of our social enlightenment. The first one was the concept of tabula rasa, blank slate. Locke rejected the notion of innate ideas. He argued that the human mind is born as a blank slate, and all knowledge is derived from sensory experience and reflection. This formed the foundation of modern empiricism. I'm not so sure how much I would agree with that. I think there are some innate things that we're born with, such as moral faculties. And, you know, that could be considered ideas. So anyway, that's a tangential point. Let's go over the 4 things that he brought forth to humanity and Western civilization, which we pride ourselves on so much these days. The second thing is natural rights. So he pioneered the theory that all individuals possess inalienable rights to life, liberty, and property. He argued that these rights exist independently of any government or social law. So, right there, we're off to a good start. These are good ideas to get behind here. Social contract theory is the third one. Locke asserted that governments exist only by the consent of the governed. Yes. If a government fails to protect the natural rights of its citizens, the people have a legitimate right to revolt, to overthrow and replace it. That's a very leftist principle. You could say anarchist principle, communist principle, in the sense that it's a principle whereby we understand that power is not self-justifying. It must bear the burden of legitimacy. It must bear the burden of proof to show, to demonstrate its legitimacy. If it cannot do that, it should be dismantled and reconstituted from the bottom up. That's a very Enlightenment principle that was espoused by John Locke, the father of liberalism. The fourth is the separation of powers. So this is like how we have 3 branches of the main government: the judicial branch, the executive, and the legislative. So to prevent tyranny, Locke advocated for dividing government responsibilities into different branches, an idea that directly inspired the structure of modern democratic constitutions. Now, what is not written here concerning our motives, our hand-rubbing, our own personal motivations here for discovering why is John Locke relevant to us as wage serfs living in the latest iteration of finance capitalism. How does that apply to what did Locke say that applies to us directly? And when I think of John Locke, I think of the fact that he first said, as far as I can tell, he's the first one that famously or popularly said that the fruits of one's labor belongs to that person. You know, we should be entitled, if nothing else, a human being should be entitled to the fruits of their own labor, being that their labor is the one thing for sure in this life that we have ownership of as individuals. So we should be able to control whatever value is produced by our labor should come back to the laborer. And that's a very Enlightenment ideal. Obviously, that's sort of, you can think of John Locke as sort of the forefather to classical economics, because a lot of subsequent classical economists built on that idea, and then that's, you know, pretty much the culmination of classical economics is evidenced by the labor theory of value, that like the theory of value and price and rent and labor, all of these concepts that we now can toil in the garden of, that was because of people like John Locke and the Age of Enlightenment. But it's interesting to study people's works over time, because, you know, we have the foresight, the vantage point of history to look back and see how society has progressed, and we can see in full view the work of these thinkers and intellectuals centuries ago, and see what they got right, what they got wrong. Because as I understand it, regarding John Locke, though he did say that very based thing that we are all entitled to the fruits of our own labor, he mistakenly thought or believed that landlords were also entitled to the fruits of their own labor, but he thought that the extractive way that they profit and they, you know, charge rent, he considered that a labor of landlords. And that is what the likes of Adam Smith, who came after John Locke and was specifically involved, like specifically interested in the economy and its machinations and in the flow of money, he disavowed that idea entirely, while also keeping the good parts of Locke, that we are entitled to the fruits of our own labor, and labor is really the source of all value. However, there are different forms of profit making, and not all of them have a correlation to labor, to a productive input. Because you think logically, productive inputs must produce profitable outputs. But in the case of landlords, as we will come to know, as we know now, the way that they make money is through unearned practices, charging rents and, you know, in the case of the banks, charging interest, which, again, like I said, have no input from labor or industry. Purely extractive, would have already happened. How can you charge rent or interest for sunlight and land itself when that was not, you had no influence on its creation, you know? So we have John Locke, and then we have Adam Smith. So Adam Smith, and really, let me just back up. So it's John Locke, and then we have the physiocrats. And the physiocrats came about in, I want to say the mid 1750s. 1756, the same year that the immortal tone poet was born. 1756 to 1776 is kind of the time period for the physiocrats, and we're going to talk about them. So they convene in Paris, France, in the 1750s, and they meet, you know, they meet and they talk and they think and they write about the economy, and they study the economy, and that goes for decades. And the physiocrats were a group of 18th century French economists. And even the term economists, Like, people didn't call themselves economists before the physiocrats. They kind of pioneered, like, hey, we're going to call ourselves economists. We're going to study the economy. And that didn't exist before. I mean, there were people that they didn't use that term, is what I'm trying to say. So the physiocrats were headed by a guy named Francois Quesnay. And probably, I had never heard of this guy. I heard of Adam Smith, which we'll talk about soon. But Francois Quesnay comes before. So we have John Locke, then we have the creation of the physiocrats, and it's headed by this guy, Francois Quesnay, in the 1750s. And he was a French economist and a physician, aka a surgeon, who served as the leading figure and intellectual anchor of the physiocrats, the world's first systematic school of economic thought. So he was originally a highly successful royal surgeon. Quesnay later turned his attention to economics, and he applied, this is interesting, I think. Thank you, Comrade Cranky. The Smith family is the best family, huh? So he applies biological principles of circulation, which is what he's familiar with, being that is his expertise, being a surgeon. He applies biological principles of circulation to the flow of wealth within a nation. So the flow of money is what Francois Quesnay was very concerned with, for obvious reasons, because France was in turmoil economically at that point. They were saddled with debt. You know, the same kind of story. It's always the same kind of story. There was no alleviation to public grievances about all this debt that they owed, and the country was going bankrupt, and they really so out of that economic crisis, you know, you inspire a lot of well-meaning people, intellectuals, that are like, hey, what's going on here? Why are we going through this? And it just so happens that this surgeon guy was very interested in that, and so he, given his background, he likens the circular flow of money to the circulation system of an organism, and so he's looking at, where does the money go? Where does the money ultimately end up? And he finds, or they find, in their study. By the way, just to back up for a second, you can see here that the first thing that they list is the Tableau Économique. This was the very influential book or study done on the French economy in 1758. This was written by Francois Quesnay, and it influenced Adam Smith to such a point where he Adam Smith, called the Tableau Économique like one of the greatest contributions to humanity, and it's like one of the three greatest contributions to humanity in the history of humanity. That's how important his work was to Adam Smith, and we all know Adam Smith because he wrote an even more influential work that is still studied today called The Wealth of Nations, which is the foundation of classical economics. So the interesting thing about the Tableau Économique, which predated The Wealth of Nations written by Adam Smith, was that Quesnay, in this book, created the first concept of a national income, which we might consider a GDP at this point. I think that's what we call. I mean, I'm sure there's two technical distinctions between national income and GDP, but I think more or less they mean sort of the same thing. But either way, we still, obviously, that's still a concept that's, you know, used in economics, the concept of a national income. And the national, and not only just the concept of a national income, but how to account for the national income. So that's the big innovation, I think, here through the writing of the Tableau Économique by Quesnay. And in the study of the national income and accounting for the national income of the French economy in the 1750s, this group of ragtag economists called the physiocrats learned that most of the money was ending up in the landlord class, the hereditary landlord aristocracy, was collecting all of the money. It was flowing upwards towards this rentier class. And at that time, you know, you got to understand the topography of the culture. This is why we talked about the Age of Enlightenment at first, that there was all these intellectuals who were discussing new ideas about civil liberties and human rights, and these were new things. And that the idea of a democracy, and separation of power, and separation of church and state, all of these ideas were groomed in this time period. So it would make sense that, and you know, they're reacting to the present but fastly being outmoded mode of production called feudalism. And I think they all understood that the rentier class of hereditary landlords was a parasitic entity that siphoned off profits from the productive economy. So this is all, you know, this is what presaged the French Revolution happening in 1789, a couple decades later. It was also to get rid of the aristocracy. So it makes sense that, okay, so they find that the landlords are taking all the money, all the nation's wealth is being collected by the landlord class. And another interesting thing about the physiocrats is that they pioneered this phrase, which is a French phrase, which I think predated, you know, the physiocrats, laissez-faire. The term, as I understand it, laissez-faire means let us be. Nowadays, you hear people who, in defense of finance capitalism, in defense of the banking class, in the defense of economic land rents, ground rents, natural resource rents, in the defense of monopolies, in the defense of the banking system, in defense of the Federal Reserve, in defense of the landlord class, they will say, I'm a laissez-faire capitalist. Well, again, this is why learning, education, history is important, because the physiocrats coined that term, laissez-faire. It meant let us be. And what that meant in the context of the 18th century Age of Enlightenment in the French society, which the physiocrats were enmeshed in, that's probably a bad word to say it, but that's where they were cultivating these ideas. That meant let us be free from the rentier class. Let us be free from being charged interest and all these extractive forms of unearned income. Okay? So again, another irony there that you can use when you have to dismantle these pro-finance capitalist talking points, because they're a complete inversion of what industrial capitalism stood for in the 19th century. And again, that ideological framework was paved in the preceding century with the Age of Enlightenment, 18th century classical economics. So another thing that was interesting that I learned about was that we think of Francois Quesnay, I would say, I mean, for the time that he's writing in, I would say he's pretty based. He's trying to get rid of feudalism. I think I tip my cap to any intellectual or any revolutionary or any individual with any modicum of influence who dismantled in their time frame, in their present society, what they experienced, if they advocated for dismantling domination and this tyrannical oversight, they advocated for a dismantling of the hierarchy. And so I think Quesnay was trying to do that. He wanted to reform. I don't necessarily think of him as a revolutionary, but I think he wanted to correct some parasitic activity. So, but the interesting part that I'm trying to build up to here is that he tried to frame his argument flatteringly to the landlord class, because in his estimation, and I think in the physiocrats' estimation at the time, that they needed support from these landlord elites. They were too politically powerful, that their ideas for reform would never really gain traction if they didn't couch the policy formation and the thought behind it in language that was forgiving of the or obsequious or flattering to the landlord class. And so that's what he did in his writings, in his messaging. He basically flipped it. And I'm sure he felt the opposite, but he basically framed the labor and industrial sector of the economy as being sterile. As you can see here, it says sterile classes. He said, in contrast to agriculture, Quesnay classified manufacturing, trade, and artisans as the sterile class. He believed they merely transformed existing materials rather than creating new original value. So he tried to flip it and say the landlords were actually the productive class, and because they're so productive, because they're clearly crushing it, and that's where all the wealth goes, and they're the source, he called them the source of the wealth in the country, then that's the reason that they should be taxed. Because really, we shouldn't make the laborers and the industrialists be taxed, because they're really not doing much, you know? So better to tax the landlord class. So I thought that was kind of interesting that he flipped it, but I wonder if he actually felt that way, or if that was just a political way of, you know, again, like I said, messaging the landlord aristocracy in a way that they would be more receptive to. But obviously, we know it's the other way around. Now you see here it says the laissez-faire origin. It says Quesnay and his followers coined the phrase laissez-faire, let do, let pass, let us be, whatever you... I mean, I guess there's different ways to translate it, but he argued that governments should not interfere with natural economic laws, favor industry over agriculture, which we could mean, at the time, we could think of favor labor and the productive goods and services sector over agriculture, which we can think of as landlords. But as I understand it, in the book that I'm reading, a lot of this information I'm getting is from this book, Killing the Host, by Michael Hudson. But apparently, the laissez-faire term meant originally let us be from the royal aristocracy, you know, the king and the queen and all this, and the monarchs. But when it was popularized by the physiocrats, the way that its current iteration is, they meant let us be free from the landed aristocracy, the landlords. So you can also make an equivalent between 19th century landlords and 20th and 21st century bankers. They're both doing the same things, charging for natural resources, or such as land. Okay, so we talked about Francois Quesnay. Now, as the physiocrats are convening in the 1750s onwards through up until the 1770s, they encounter a man named Adam Smith who is he took a trip to France, and he was there for 2 years, in 1764 to 1766, I believe. Adam Smith visits Paris, and he meets the physiocrats. And Adam Smith was Scottish, and he's also one of the first to call himself an economist, and he's now classified as the father of modern economics, But, and there's not everything that he said was true, but he had, you know, once again, he continued the work of the Enlightenment thinkers that preceded him. And his main contribution, like we talked about, was The Wealth of Nations. Now, he doesn't write that until 1776, the same year that the Americans declared their independence. But Adam Smith visits with the physiocrats, and he picks up on the idea that land should be taxed. And I think he already was thinking this, and this only reinforces his ideas. And he eventually leaves France, and he goes back to Scotland, and he writes his influential magnum opus, The Wealth of Nations. And The Wealth of Nations, the main thrust of it is the theory of price, value, and labor, how the price of something should be connected to its value should be determined by the cost of production. Then people want to dissect what is, what constitutes the value of something, what constitutes the cost of production. Does it include economic rent paid to the landlord? Does it include interest paid to the bankers? Ultimately, it's decided by these economists that no, in fact, that should not be considered what is value. They determine, and this is the watershed moment, that labor is the source of all value. And they all said this in their own kind of way. Now, we have The Wealth of Nations, we got Adam Smith, we got Francois Quesnay, we got John Locke before that. Moving forward in the start of the 19th century, you have a debate for the ages breaks out after Napoleon starts a war with England in 1798. It lasts until 1815. Napoleon starts this war. I know we've talked about it. It's detrimental to the English economy because France imposes a naval blockade on the island of Great Britain, and this causes food and land to skyrocket in price because England can't receive any imports now. They can't receive cheap imports. Everyone's dependent on the domestic food-producing sector, and obviously at that time, land is still the mode of production, agricultural land. And so, long story short, because of the Napoleonic War against England, the landlord class in England makes hand over fist in profits because land prices go up, food prices go up because of the blockade, like I just explained. And they love it. War is great for the landlord class in England. However, it becomes a problem when the war ends in 1815. We took a little trip. In 1815, the war ends between England and France. And England is faced with an economic or a political crisis between two opposing classes. On the one hand, you have the landlord class, which wants to impose what they call the Corn Laws, which basically amount to a set of artificial tariffs imposed on grain imports so that the cost of importing is too much and the local economy in England will be forced to buy from the landlord class. So the landlords can obviously make as much profits as they were making during the war as when the war has ended. So this is a controversial policy decision, and it passes in 1815, but it sparks a really intense political debate between two historical figures, which we now know of because they waged this debate in full view in English society. And this debate was between a guy named David Ricardo, who represented the banking class, and a guy by the name of Thomas Malthus, who represented the landlord class. So Dave Ricardo and Thomas Malthus were brilliant British economists, close personal friends, and fierce intellectual rivals. Their decades-long debate during the early 19th century shaped the trajectory of classical economics and directly influenced modern policies regarding trade, welfare, and growth. So Thomas Malthus, you might remember from his other terrible viewpoint that, you know, overpopulation was going to lead to starvation. Therefore, we got to K all the pores, basically. So you hear a lot about Malthusian. Explain the term Malthusian for our class here. Anything relating to the pessimistic economic and social theories of Thomas Malthus. It is most frequently used to describe a situation where unchecked population growth outpaces the available food supply, leading to inevitable societal collapse. But as we know, overpopulation is not a problem. There are enough resources to feed everybody. Privatization, on the other hand, is the problem. Privatization of those bountiful, abundant natural resources. So he's a big shithead. He wants to blame the poor. He wants the landlords to make more profits. He believes that if we, let the landlords gain a monopoly on the food industry and agriculture business and industry, then, if they can charge more for their land rents, this is his thinking. Let's have the landlords charge more for their land rents. And if they make more money, they're going to invest it back into the productive agricultural business. There'll be more profits. And it's the same shit that we hear today applied to finance capitalism, applied to, subsidies to high-tech Silicon Valley transnational corporations. And so the same argument 200 years ago, being made at the behest of the landlord class in England. And David Ricardo obviously feels completely differently. He wants to repeal the Corn Laws. He's, and this is so wild to me. I don't know if it's wild to you, but in the 19th century, early 19th century, there was an alliance between banking and industry. Banking, as I understand it, in the early 19th century, the major market for money lending was commerce at the time. I mean, this is the advent of industrial capitalism. You have the creation of machines, factories, replacing the old mode of production. So the bankers are wise to all this. They are money lending for, not only domestic commerce, but especially foreign commerce. So they have their own cynical, self-interested, narcissistic aims. They want to make more profits, and they see the best vehicle to do this is to lend money to foreign markets, to foreign countries, because they'll accrue all these transfer fees and profits, and they will also, acquire profits through exchange fees, just changing one currency into another. That's another avenue for their, for them to charge fees, and collecting interest and all this stuff. So anyway, they mainly, now that's completely different to today. We should make a note of banking. The major market for banking today is real estate. So it's back to land. It's back to, natural resources, real, rent yielding assets, static rent yielding assets. It's not to industry. Now, it might look incrementally, marginally better if the banking system actually, did more lending to productive industry. But as it stands now, it's mainly to service more debt. It's mainly for more financial overhead. So David Ricardo is, not a good guy, I would say, but he's at least short-sightedly correct in that he wants to impose a land tax, which is the same thing that Adam Smith sought to do, because they correctly viewed the landlords as parasites on the economy, on the productive economy. But he's a banker, He's defending the banking system. He's defending the Rothschilds at the time. So the point is that it's not like he's a great guy. We don't need to look at him as a hero. But as history stands, David Ricardo wins this debate, hands down. His ideas went out in England. Eventually, the Corn Laws are repealed in 1846. And it's back to, money lending in foreign markets and imperialism, the raping of Africa. Sorry to use that hard word, but that's what they did. That's what the English banks did to Africa. And the rest is history. But David Ricardo's ideas went out, and this sort of culminates, I think, this idea that land should be taxed, rent-yielding assets should be taxed, and they shouldn't be profited off of parasitically by bankers and landlords. It should go back into funding more public utilities and social infrastructure. And this new culture of pro-labor, pro-industry, anti-landlords culminates with this bill produced by the House of Commons in 1910 that famously imposed a pretty severe tax on land. And it was the controversy, a controversy developed subsequent to that. Because though it was passed in the House of Commons, now stop me when this sounds familiar, it was passed in the House of Commons, this land tax, this historic land tax that had never been done in England, which was a culmination of classical economics, espousing the virtues of taxing land. It was blocked by the upper house of the British government, known as the House of Lords. I forgot where my mic was for a second. It was stopped by the House of Lords. Yes, of course, the House of Lords is not going to like the landlord tax. But, I mean, the point I was trying to make there with the stop me if it sounds familiar is because that's the House of Representatives and the Senate. Those two, it's the lower house and the upper house. And the upper house always blocks whatever the lower house passes. That's usually what happens. And that's why you have these rotating villains. They try to orchestrate it to where, it'll go this far, but no further. Sweep that away. Oh, shucks, we almost had it there, but then Kristen Sinema had to vote yay or nay, or whatever turncoat they need to pick out in the Democrat Party to get what they want. So, let me just see if I can phrase this right so we can inspire more information. But explain the 1910 land tax decision and controversy in the House of Lords in England. Let's see. That jogs the memory here. The 1910 land tax decision and controversy refers to the monumental political and constitutional crisis triggered when the British House of Lords broke centuries of tradition to block the Liberal government's people's budget. They blocked the people's budget with the people's stick of 1909. At the absolute center of this explosive dispute was a radical new tax aimed directly at the immense wealth of Britain's aristocratic landowning class. So it was radical. Taxes are radical, man. Can't be taxing the wealthy. That's not how this works. The fallout from this clash ultimately stripped so there is a happy ending. There's a silver lining to this story, because after the people's budget was repealed in the House of Lords, the controversy ensued. There was fallout from the clash, and ultimately what came to be was that the House of Lords was stripped of its power to veto financial legislation henceforth. Forthwith, we must all have pancakes. Can I please describe my analysis of democratic centralism? Yes, but I mean, where do we begin? We'll touch on that. I'm sure, it's a point that I return to a lot. But I'm going to finish up with this. I appreciate it, Michael. But I'm going to finish up with this explanation here with the House of Lords, and then we can talk about democratic centralism, whatever the fuck that means. I just call it enlightened centrism. Same. Democratic socialism. Begin in the middle there, yes. Right in the center of things. All right, get those juices flowing. So the fallout from this clash ultimately stripped the House of Lords. Okay, but the actually there's not really a silver lining, because even though the House of Commons was able to reverse this power that the House of Lords so, irresponsibly wielded, and it was such a criminal action that they did this. They were able to get that to stop. However, by the time they were able to get that done, World War I was kicking off. I don't know if it had already begun or if it had started or whatever, but politically, the support for taxing land had dissipated by the time that they were able to actually do something about it. And it's never been brought up since. And I think we know why, because what happened with the bankers and what happened with the landlord class, they all got more powerful after World War I, and then even more powerful after World War II. So it's gotten lost to history, this really historic moment in English history, as far as I can tell, about the land tax controversy in 1910. And, around that same time, think about this. In 1913, we do the same thing here in the States. We implement the 1913 income tax, sort of like the consciousness of the Western world was sort of on the same wavelength across oceans there. So in 1913, we have the implementation of the income tax, which was, once again, mainly a land tax. It was a tax on wealth and real estate. Same as what the English were doing. So just 3 years later, we have that. And, of course, the bankers get away with highway robbery because they have all these legal loopholes. They figure out a way to skirt around that little pesky little income tax. And they make sure to just redirect that tax beam to the goys down at the base of the economy. So they are able to mitigate that income tax decision to where it becomes basically null. But that's another thing that I want to impress upon you, to tell people when they tell you that you can't tax wealth, when you try to tell them that the effective income tax rate for billionaires is less than 1%, they can't fire back, well, that's just not how the tax code was written. You can't tax wealth. That's insane. Well, actually, in 1913, that's exactly what we did. In fact, the whole concept of income tax was specifically designed for unearned income. That's why it needed to be taxed, because it was income, but it wasn't earned. That's why we have an income tax, but that's not, we only tax earned income. You follow me? We only tax the product, the value created by laborers, people that actually labored and toiled with their blood, sweat, and tears and their time. And that goes the same for industry itself. I knew it was you, Robert. You broke my heart. Go ahead, Robert. Yeah, just clock out whenever you want to. Just come and go as you please. What do we care? It's only the future of civilization that's at stake. Robert Templeton. Robert Templeton, please report to the principal's office. Your mother's here. Robert Templeton. It's past your curfew, Robert. It's bedtime. Mommy's brought some sweets and some warm milk. Robert Templeton. Robert Templeton, the class has a message for you. It reads, "Fuck you, Robert." Yeah, I guess Robert just doesn't care about economics and financial freedom. Sweepy time is more important to Robbie than learning about his financial freedom and liberation. And he has nothing to say for himself. He gets called out and he runs and hides. Like a little scared boy. Class has not been dismissed, sir. I tried to told them. You don't want to listen. You don't want to listen. Oh, I think you know who. I think you know who. You missed Robert and his antics and his escapades. He's on a limited time hangout. Robert knew what he was getting into, and yet he continued to behave in such a manner as to disrespect your time, my time, make a mockery of this court. Make a sham out of the justice system. Robert, God damn you. Still all quiet on the Robert front. We've bullied him into silence. That's right. That's because that's justice being served. You're judged not in accordance with your name, but by your actions and maybe your good looks. If you're good looking, we will forgive you. I didn't hear the bell ring. Robert, I don't think it's recess time yet. I know that's your favorite period. Anyway, so we talked about up until the income tax of 1913. I want to see if I have any more notes. You know, so let's do some review. When you think John Locke, let's actually pull up the quote. John Locke, Fruits of Labor. Quote it. Quote it. Give it to me. Give me the goods. What did he say? He said, though the earth and all inferior creatures be common to all men, yet every man has a property in his own person. This no body has any right to but himself, the labor of his body, and the work of his hands, we may say are properly his. Whatsoever then he removes out of the state that nature hath provided and left it in, he hath mixed his labor with, and joined to it something that is his own, and thereby makes it his property. So there you have it. The fruits of your labor belong to you. That's John Locke. Then we have, we talked about Francois Quesnay. Who's Francois Quesnay, class? The father of the physiocrats. He wrote the Tableau Économique, which was the first national income accounting ever done as a concept, which paved the way for concepts like the GDP. And he found that the landlord class were indeed parasites, and they must pay for their crimes. And this led ultimately to the French Revolution, where you heard Marie Antoinette say, let them eat cake, and then the people said, chop chop time, baby. Yes, laissez-faire. Thank you for reminding me. Laissez-faire also innovated by the physiocrats. Laissez-faire meant let us be free from economic rents and interest and financial parasitism employed by the feudal aristocracy. So fuck that. That's what they said. That's what they were seeking. That's what they were vibing with. Then you had Adam Smith. He writes The Wealth of Nations. He says land tax now, yes. Labor is the source of all value, yes. Economic rents, no. Moving onward, we had David Ricardo have a battle of intellectual wits with the likes of Thomas Malthus, who was a pessimistic economist, who thought overpopulation was going to make the world starve, who conveniently left out of his analysis the policy of privatization and the upward transfer of wealth and commodity accumulation, all hoarded by the upper class, constituting 1% of the population, which deprives and paywalls human rights, like the right to food, water, and land. And David Ricardo was no less averse or impervious to getting things wrong of his own, because he also felt that land was only depreciating over time. He had funny little ideas about the fertility of soil and agriculture, which was steadfastly being outmoded by innovations in artificial fertilizers, which was making land more productive, and it didn't matter what the soil content was per se. So he had some incorrect ideas about the value of land and how it should be calculated, but nonetheless, he was correct that land should be taxed. He was correct in opposing Thomas Malthus and the landlord aristocracy. I'm trying to think of anything else I want to say about David Ricardo. Because there was something else that he thought that was not correct, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, yeah. The other thing that he left out of his analysis was, okay, so here's the thing. David Ricardo, like we said, was a proponent of the banking class. He was himself a banker. And if he, I don't know if he was himself a banker, okay, but he was a banker's advocate, and he was a banking economist, but he might have been a banker. But that's not really the point. He applied correctly the tools and the logic and the principles that Adam Smith did that preceded him about land and how land should be taxed. And he thought of it, he thought of the landlords as being recipients of unearned income, which they were. That's correct. Good job, David. However, you got to consider the source, right? He's a banker. He leaves out completely in his entire work, all his years of work, all of his analysis. He conveniently leaves out the same parasitism that the financial class of bankers and moneylenders are guilty of. The same extractive unearned income in the form of interest and mortgage debt. He left that out, and he left that work up to subsequent economists like our Lord and Savior, Karl Marx, who was the culmination of all classical economics. Karl Marx, he put it all together. He did it once more with feeling. But subsequent to David Ricardo, he wins this famous debate. Then land tax becomes a big issue of 19th century England, culminates with the 1910 income tax, which was repealed and then fought against, and controversy ensues, doesn't get implemented ultimately. And we, through World War I to World War II, we just begin this age of finance capitalism. The banks are just in control. And subsequent to David Ricardo, there's this guy named John Stuart Mill. And there's one thing that we need to remember from John Stuart Mill is that he said that landlords earn interest, or they earn money in their sleep. Like he just basically repeated what was, very popular of a concept at the time, which was that landlords are parasites. But you know how I set up David Ricardo for you? Basically illustrating him to be not a socialist, certainly not a socialist. He's a banker. He wants to charge interest and other forms of parasitic rent seeking, but he opposes landlords, but that doesn't make him a socialist per se. And yet, John Stuart Mill is considered a Ricardian socialist. Like, David Ricardo is so influential that people subsequent to him that take to his ideas, they're called Ricardian socialists. I'm going to ask AI if John Stuart Mill is a Ricardian socialist. What? They say John Stuart? Of course, they're going to contradict me. Although he shared a deeper connection to David Ricardo's economic models and expressed strong socialist sympathies later in life. Define Ricardian socialist. Let's see, maybe it says here. Ricardian socialists, such as Thomas Hodgkin and William Thompson, took David Ricardo's labor theory of value to its extreme moral conclusion. They argued that because labor creates all economic value, the entire product of that labor belongs exclusively to the worker. Correct. So one thing we can say about that is that each economist, Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Karl Marx, all had their own conception of the labor theory of value. And I think they all sort of overlap. They just have different semantic issues, maybe. Maybe a little bit is conceptual and substantial, but as far as I can tell, it seems to be more or less the same thing. Whereas they all accept the idea that labor is the source of all value. They have different ways of putting it. But as I understand it, Adam Smith considered value to be equal to the wages paid to the laborers, the profits made by the capitalists, and the rent paid to the landlord. Those constitute the value, the overall value. That's Adam Smith. Remember how we said we can look at people's works and see what they got right, what they got wrong. Well, here we go. Subsequent to that, David Ricardo says Adam Smith is wrong. Even though Adam Smith correctly understood that land should be taxed and not be rent. But his formulation of what value was included rent, and David Ricardo said that's not correct. He equated value to be equal to direct plus indirect labor. So direct labor is the workers work in the supply chain, creating the commodity, and the indirect labor is what Marx would consider the capital, the raw resources, materials, equipment, machines, tools, what have you, that were needed for the workers to create the commodity itself. And David Ricardo constituted what Marx called capital as indirect labor because the capital itself, he argued, was a result of past labor, which is true. All capital is, the result of labor somehow. So he called that indirect labor. Marx comes along and says value is equal to constant capital, which is what Ricardo would classify as indirect labor, plus variable capital, which Marx classifies as labor itself, abstractly put, labor power, and the surplus. I think he's the first one that uses that word, surplus value. And that, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Karl Marx is the first economist to popularize this idea of a surplus value. And the surplus value is obviously the value that's produced by labor, whatever is excess. So he doesn't, that's what Adam Smith would call profits. Karl Marx calls that surplus value. Either way, call it profits or surplus value, the question of every society is to answer who gets the surplus value and under what conditions. But those are the three different theories of value, labor theories of value. As best as I can put it in terms of economic equations that they created. So Ricardian socialists, that's what we were talking about just a second ago. And the AI is telling me that John Stuart Mill was not a Ricardian socialist, even though he identified deeply with Ricardian socialism, which was not socialism, but maybe socialism for the bankers, ultimately. But in the context of 19th century capitalism, this was seen as a short-sighted good thing, obviously, to alleviate labor and industry with the rise of this new mode of production. So, I don't know. So Mill, John Stuart Mill, let me just read this little blurb here. The major focus of value and price theory remained on land rent throughout the 19th century. In 1848, John Stuart Mill explained the logic of taxing it away from the landlord class. Quote, suppose that there is a kind of income which constantly tends to increase without any exertion or sacrifice on the part of the owners. Those owners constituting a class in this community. Rejecting the moral justification that Locke provided for land ownership. Because remember, John Locke got this wrong. As based as he was, he got the part about landlords not being parasites wrong. He thought that they were productive members of society and they were worthy of their land rents. But, you know, he might have maybe had too many beers that day when he was writing that down. I don't know. So, rejecting the moral justification that Locke provided for land ownership, that their land owed its value to their own labor, John Stuart Mill wrote that landlords, quote, grow richer, as it were, in their sleep, without working, risking, or economizing. What claim have they on the general principle of social justice to this accession of riches? He's like, bitch, I'm not going to be lectured about morals from these landlord parasites. Excuse me? Excuse me. Correct yourself. In what would they have been wronged if society had, from the beginning, reserved the right of taxing the spontaneous increase of rent? Boom. John Stuart based Mill. So the value of land rose as a result of the efforts of the entire community. This is really important that you should understand. This is something that is important. That banks and landlords profit off of the rise in prices that are the result of public investments. And a whole slew of public activities, to be honest with you. You could just say it's the public that creates the appreciation of real estate. Case in point, public transportation makes a neighborhood more valuable to live in. So thus the homes and the real estate of that neighborhood go up. But those roads or that rail line or that subway line was built using taxpayer money. So what makes perfect sense is that whatever price gains are made off the top as a result of this public investment, that price gain should not be collected as interest to the banks or rent to the landlords. That price gain, that windfall, should go back to the government, should go back to the public, essentially, by way of taxation. We should be taxing those real estate price gains, capital gains, because of public infrastructure investments. And that's happened time and time again. I mean, we're living in the opposite world of that. And there's a famous, not a famous example, but I mean, it's an example that he writes about in his book about a New York City subway line being constructed at some point, going into Brooklyn or somewhere, some borough, and a lot of the real estate that surrounded that new line went up in price, and it was like it cost the public $2 billion to make that subway line. And the price gains from that investment were $6 billion. It was estimated, I mean, they did studies, you know, like what was the price appreciation of real estate as a result of that investment to make a subway line to that neighborhood or wherever. And they determined that it was $6 billion that served as a windfall profit for the banks and for the landlords. But they had nothing to do with the price appreciation. They didn't pay for it. They didn't risk any capital investment to make it happen. But why are they getting all of the profits from it? I thought this was capitalism. I thought that those who invest in something, in an asset, when that asset appreciates in value, the people that invested in that asset should see a return on that investment. An ROI, if you will. Well, that's not what happens in the land of privatization and milk and honey. So that's just a big point that I think we should harp on. The value of land rose as a result of the efforts of the entire community. Mill concluded that rising site value should belong to the public as the natural tax base, rather than leaving it as a, quote, unearned appendage to the riches of a particular class. Mill justified taxing land rent on grounds of national interest as well as moral philosophy. The aim was to avoid taxing labor and industry, but on income that had no counterpart in labor. This income has no counterpart in labor. In time, the labor theory of value was applied to monopoly rents. All right, so I think that's all I had to say about that. I'm pissed. I need to go swing some chickens. It's been a few days since I've done that. And I know it's just going to unleash some stress.
There's still time. Something much bigger. Whether the people of Graceland can trust decisions affecting their homes, their environment, their future, being made openly, honestly, and meaningful public transportation.
What is this about? I don't like it. I don't have any context for it. It requires intellectual labor that I'm not willing to give to it right now. Damn it.
Hello, viewers. We got a fundraiser update. We were just able to donate $107,000 to Palestinians in Gaza.
Fuck yeah.
As most of you may know, Ethan Klein, the YouTuber, sued me for defamation for criticizing his support for Israel. I started a GoFundMe to raise money for legal fees, and I said from the start that whatever was left over would be donated once legal proceedings concluded, and now they have. Ethan just dropped the lawsuit right before we were about to file our response, didn't say anything. Total victory, and we have now $100,000, $107,000 left over after legal expenses, which is about $10,000, and GoFundMe's cut, which is about 3%. It's all getting donated to help Palestinian families in Gaza. The main destination for the funds is Project Sarsour. It's a project that was started by my friend Ahmed in Gaza, and it's provided help with things like housing, food, basic necessities, baby formula, solar panels, and batteries. And there's a bunch of nurses that have been going unpaid while treating
Michael, that's right. Democratic centralism. Right. Yeah, I remember we were talking about that. What is that? What is democratic centralism? I think that's just a funny way of saying fascism. Right? What do you think AI would say? Let's see. Democratic centralism is the organizational principle of Communist Party governance. that combines freedom of discussion. Okay, well then this is completely different than what I thought it was going to be. But apparently this is first formulated by Vladimir Lenin in his 1902 treatise, What is to be Done? The system is summarized by slogan, freedom of discussion, unity of action. The system operates as a balance between two opposite concepts. Before a policy decision is finalized, party members at all levels have the right to debate, critique, and vote on the issue. I don't know. I mean, is this what it is? Lower level party bodies democratically elect representatives to higher level party bodies. Should we read Lenin? Let's read what Lenin wrote about it. Freedom of discussion, unity of action. I mean, I have to say, if Lenin did this, it's got my stamp of approval. Okay. When I hear democratic centralism, I do not think about that. Maybe I think what he's trying to say is it's not centrism like I thought it was. Lenin. Not John Lennon. I know, I think of reform as bullshit. Exactly. I'm triggered by words like democratic, centrism, democracy. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Democracy, I've never seen her. Yeah, I mean, Lenin is obviously based. I think he correctly observed his class conditions in feudal Russia at the turn of the 20th century. And he implemented a successful socialist revolution and was able to thwart imperial invasions. 14 countries invaded in World War I. They invaded the newly formed Soviet Union. Well, I guess the Soviet Union hadn't technically come into being, but the Bolshevik Revolution had already happened. But, yeah, Lenin is based. I don't know how he did it. I need to take more notes, honestly. I need to read more Lenin. I've read State and Revolution, and I've read Imperialism, the Highest Form of Capitalism. I think I've tried to read What Is to Be Done. It seemed a bit to me, I know it's a great, everybody swears by this book. And I've read some of it, but I have to admit to you that I find it a little insider baseball. In that there's a lot, when it's a little densely written, I guess. I don't know. Is that what you find? And, okay, it's not just me. Thugbone thinks that too. But I just remember being like, who are these people? And he was always, I'm sure if I got the names, and I felt like I needed like a little score sheet of like who all the cast of characters were at the time that he's writing, because he's referencing all these people and organizations I don't really have a frame of reference for. So it makes it hard to follow. And then I'm like, gosh, I want a snack. I start thinking about cheesecakes. And then my brain starts hurting. But State and Revolution, very based. I've read a few of his essays. But I don't have a problem with this. You know what? Democratic centralism? Based. I'm a Marxist-Leninist. All right, back to this.
and some of it will go to support them. The money was transferred to Project Sarsour via their fiscal sponsor, which is the Amal Relief and Renewal Foundation. The Amal Relief and Renewal Foundation, which is founded and directed by Palestinian American Mayada Fassisi. It's grassroots, it's 100% volunteer run, there's no overhead or salaries, so all the donations go directly to the families. It is a US registered 501(c) nonprofit organization. Donations are tax deductible to the fullest extent of the law. The foundation also has a number of aid initiatives. They provide humanitarian support to families in Gaza with a number of programs. It's extremely hot in Gaza right now, and Israel has decimated the water infrastructure, so people need water deliveries. Israel is also deliberately restricting the entry of nutritious foods like fresh fruits and vegetables. Instead, they're flooding the strip with unhealthy stuff like candy and junk food and canned food, which a lot of times is expired, and this has led to numerous health complications. So the Amal Foundation puts together baskets of fruits and vegetables and distributes them for free, and they provide water deliveries. We've allocated a portion of the money for these initiatives, but obviously the need is still immense and ongoing, so consider donating to them directly. Their current goal is set to $8,000, and they've raised just over $3,000. It would be super cool if we could meet that goal, and consider donating to Project Sarsour as well. If you're interested in helping any of the families on any sort of regular basis, you can just reach out to Ahmed. I've left his social media links in the description. All the fundraising pages are linked below. I'll be taking down the GoFundMe for the legal fees probably within the next few days. So follow the Amal Relief and Renewal Foundation and Ahmed Sarsour's pages on social media to stay updated with everything. It's really hard to overstate how well everything ended up working out. I mean, it's so rare that some good can come out of something so shitty like a frivolous silencing lawsuit, and that is all thanks to you, the viewers and the people who donated, and of course my lawyer, who's the best person ever. So anyways, that's it. Just a quick update on the stuff. Thank you for watching, and donate to the links below. Please send money. Bye.
Take that, Ethan Decline. Haha.
If you want to stop Donald Trump from...
Here, wait, let's share that link as well. Where is the website?
Hello, viewers. We got a fundraiser update. We were just able to donate 107.
Here's the donate to the Amal Relief and Renewal Foundation. There's the link. Donate to Project Sarsour, and follow Ahmed on Instagram, YouTube. I'm doing that right now. It's something very
Hello,
easy
viewers.
to
We got a
do.
fundraiser update.
Very
We were just
easy and
able to
free to
donate
do.
$107,000 to Palestinians in Gaza.
Cool. So you can follow him.
As most of you may know, Ethan Klein, the YouTuber, sued me for defamation for criticizing his support.
Fuck Ethan Klein, that silly little bitch. Whoa. What is this? We got a Morandi interview? Too long, in fact, and it's not playing. See, what is this?
All these buildings, plants, factories that we're talking about start opening up. All I know is I'd like to be the next president, because I'm going to make somebody look very good. They're going to sit there and all this stuff is going to be opening and they're going to be saying what a genius they are. That happened with Biden. All these.
Our president is not well. He's suffering from dementia, psychopathy. Did I say dementia? He's a complete psychopath. Delusions. Just incredible. The Iran war is going very well, he says, better than anyone expected.
The Iran war?
What?
Well, again, we're doing very well.
Oh, my
God. Very well. I would say better than anybody expected could be done. We've knocked out their Navy, their Air Force, all of their radar, most of their
He just never, he's not even a good liar, you know, he's not Machiavellian at any level. He never changes the lie. There's never an acknowledgement of anything. He's just a broken record, and the lies don't change. Lawrence Wilkerson was talking about that too, how Netanyahu is like more Machiavellian, and he's at least a cunning liar, conniving. Donald Trump's just like a terrible liar.
Ability in terms of manufacturing the Iran war. Well, again,
He's just a vibes-based presitard. So I'm still, you see how this happens? I'm just getting spoon-fed, force-fed, clavicular posts. Day in, day out. I don't know what that's about. Well, smart one.
You called Israel's actions genocide, ethnic cleansing, murder of thousands of children, and a land grab. You described it as losing morality, treating Arabs, quote, like animals or subhumans, end quote, and incompatible with Western civilization values. You visited Gaza refugees and highlighted child casualties. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, by the way. But I would ask you...
No, that sounds like Nazi behavior, like worrying about children who are injured.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
First of all,
That's why,
everything
that's why
you
people
just
say that. I say, what are
listed-
y'all talking about? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
I
but
apologize. Go ahead.
It's a slander. Look, if you're committing genocide, which Israel currently is in Gaza, and genocide is, we have an international definition of it, which everyone signed on to up until about 20 minutes.
This is awkward because Stephen A. Smith loves the Jewish people.
Israel started committing it, and it is the systematic effort by a government to eliminate a people. And I don't have to guess about this because Israeli cabinet ministers and the prime minister of Israel repeatedly have said that's their goal. They describe the Palestinians as Amalek. I'll refer you to the Old Testament or Hebrew scriptures, whatever you want to call it, our Bible and theirs, in which Amalek is the Amalekites. And that's the group that God tells the ancient Hebrews to kill, all of them.
I love how you just got to go in like this whole Jewish mythology answer. You got to understand the Jewish psyche. They believe everyone is Amalek. And to understand Amalek, you have to understand this verse from the Talmud about the Amalekites.
Including their children, their babies, and their livestock. And the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has used this phrase multiple times, not just randomly once, again and again and again in speeches. And so have his cabinet ministers, the finance minister, the defense minister. They've all said the point is we have to kill all these people and drive them out. Well, that is the definition of genocide. Don't take my word for it. Israeli human rights groups are calling it genocide. The
Tucker is so spunky.
Rest of the world is calling it genocide. The prime minister has been indicted in international court for genocide. There's no debate about whether it's genocide. The debate is, why are we going along with this and allowing people who are committing genocide to give us moral lectures? Like, I'm not the criminal for noticing what you're doing, and I'm not going to take a moral lecture.
He said it. He said the anti-Semitic word.
From Adolf Eichmann. Why would I? This is crazy. And by the way, future generations will realize that it's crazy. So crazy, it's going to be hard to believe it happened. This has been going on for a very long time, since 1948, to varying degrees. And for the last 3 years, it's been going on at a pace that's impossible to ignore. And only in the United States, I just want to say it again, only in the United States and Israel is this not a majority view widely known by everybody. They've killed tens of thousands of children. They have killed scores of journalists, over 100 journalists. They bombed churches and hospitals. They bombed and destroyed all civilian infrastructure, and they're driving people out, and they're saying it. They're saying it out loud. What? And because of YouTube, we can actually watch this now. And it's like, oh, there's an Israeli official saying we're going to put them in concentration camps. And it's like, the United States could stop this. It's the only country on the planet that could stop it because we're paying for it. And I'm not even mad at the Israelis. I think they've gone insane. I think they will be punished for what they're doing in the same way the Germans were punished for what they did. In exactly the same way. Because
are you talking about the government or are you talking about the people? Are you talking about the government or are you talking about the people?
I'm talking about...
You better not be talking about the Jewish people.
Okay.
Stephen A. Smith loves the Jewish people.
The government ministers who ordered this, I'm talking about the people who carried it out. Is genocide being committed in Gaza? Of course, objectively. The numbers are there. Go on Wikipedia. And so it's like, it doesn't even matter. Yeah, they attack me as a person. I'm a bad person. I'm a Nazi. Okay, well, I'm not at all. But even if I were, it wouldn't change the fact that you're committing genocide.
I don't know. Maybe it will.
You called Israel.
You don't understand the Jays. They have this weird arithmetic. Oh, yeah, we saw that already. We saw that. We saw this. Let's see. What is this?
But this is the United States.
This
is
guy.
our 250-year anniversary. It's.
I don't trust a guy in shades talking to me about politics. Who is this guy?
We have to understand
wearing shades inside.
We've built here, and we have to enjoy it and actually celebrate the parts of it that other.
I mean, who does that?
People don't like. The negatives in our country, oh, everyone's fat because we have the bomb food. Nobody's got food like we do. We have food where people...
I know, and he's wearing a hat that's just unforgivable.
Will kill them. They kill themselves with it. They kill themselves with that's how good it tastes. Yum, yum. Do you know how good our food is? Do you know how good, I had some fast food in UK. When I was in London, I had Taco Bell. I tried there at McDonald's. And you know what I said? I wouldn't kill myself with this. This isn't worth the desecration of my body, the destruction of my soul. But then you come here and you go to a Taco Bell in the suburbs. I mean the burbs. You can't do it in the city because the migrants, when they're making it, don't give a shit, by the way. And that's why I think we got to limit that. When a refugee can make a quesadilla the way a suburban Hispanic can, then we'll talk. But you go...
Oh, you had some fast food, you say, Tim. You don't say. I'm surprised there's a time when you're not having fast food.
Go to a Taco Bell in the suburbs, and you have that first bite of a chicken quesadilla.
He's the one that reported the first case of chlorpsoriasis or whatever it's called. He got the explosive diarrhea from Taco Bell.
When you are drunk and high and probably both, and you're in the front seat of your car, pedal to the metal because it's the United States. And you just dropped your son off at his mother's house after the play date, which consisted of you showing him guns. And then you go through the Taco Bell drive-thru because you're limited on funds. And you take that first bite of a quesadilla with that hot, gooey cheese. You don't know what's cheese and what's sauce. It's perfect. That char on the outside. You saw that fat little torta woman press it. I like watching it get pressed, that fat little torta. Tss, that chubby little torta.
Michael, I think you should understand that the term democratic socialism in the context of the Bolshevik Revolution and the subsequent socialist state that they implemented, which overthrew Tsarist feudalism, is different from the finance capital neoliberal iteration of the word or phrase democratic socialism. So you could say words, but what you're doing is you're decontextualizing the context, right? From the words themselves. Context is important. That's what I'm trying to tell you, Michael.
To a woman, and then you have the char, and you have that creamy jalapeno sauce, and you say to yourself, I'll kill myself with this. I will eat this until I'm dead.
All he's been talking about is how he's eating so much fast food. It's like, I can tell that already by looking at you. It's fine. We don't need a litany about it. I know, I'm an asshole. I'm sorry. Well, look at that. We hit the 4-hour mark. I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. I guess that's my time. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little bit. That was fun. I relieved some of my stress. I feel better, feel lighter on my feet, feel like a better person. I hope you do too, because you know this stream confers many health benefits. Active users, long-time subscribers have reported many advancements and their health conditions, including curing their baldness, longer stamina, higher charisma, more energy, better looking. So, just one of those things that you get just by being here. And you're welcome. Really great of me to be able to do that for you. Oh, please. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure. I will see you all for Freaky Friday. Tomorrow, we'll close out the week with another 4-hour Steam session for the slopcasting. For the slop that is our lives. Thank you so much. Peace and love, and good night to you and all of your mothers. Mwah. Bye-bye, everybody.
Rathbone has to go to bed. It's time to tuck your little head. Good night. Good night. Buenas noches. Buenas noches. Buenas noches. Buenas noches.